Chapter 482. Numerous white night trees surrounded a courtyard. This courtyard was Wen Feng's residence on the main mountain peak. Because it was located on the mountain peak, the mountain wind blew and the leaves of the white night trees fell to the ground. Stepping on the leaves of the white night trees, Qin Yu, wearing a black robe, walked to the entrance of the courtyard. Creak! Just as Qin Yu walked to the entrance to the courtyard automatically opened, revealing a person. It was the cold-looking youth wearing a silver robe, Wen Feng. Seeing Qin Yu, Wen Feng nodded slightly. Just now, Great Elder Fu Lon sent me the news of your arrival. Wen Feng, it seems that you are in a rush? Qin Yu asked with a smile. Wen Feng shook his head and smiled. The cold-looking Wen Feng had a different kind of charm when he smiled. Lu Xing, you know very well that with my little bit of strength, it is impossible for me to compete with you and Lu Lan. I am in a rush, but not for the position of monarch. That's enough. Let's talk inside. The two of us can't talk like this, one on the other side of the door, right? Wen Feng said with a smile. Hearing that, Qin Yu also smiled and walked into the courtyard. In the center of the courtyard, there was a simple and unadorned round table made of stone. Beside the round table, there were 3 stone benches. Qin Yu and Wen Feng sat down. Lu Xing speak. Did you obtain any great harvest from the trip to the bewitching god temple? Wen Feng immediately asked after sitting down. Do you have the confidence to defeat Lu Lan? Qin Yu waved his hand and a jug of wine and 2 jade cups appeared on the table. Don't be in a rush. Let's talk while drinking. Qin Yu calmly poured the wine. He did not seem to be in a rush. At this moment, Wen Feng had a smile on his face. Looking at Qin Yu, his gaze became joyful. I knew it. You definitely succeeded. That guy Lu Lan, he was still so arrogant in front of me a few days ago. I want to see if he can't obtain the position of monarch this time. How can he still be arrogant? Qin Yu was slightly startled. How do you know I succeeded? Qin Yu asked. Wen Feng had a crafty look in his eyes. I guessed it just by looking at your appearance. You are not worried at all and are even in the mood to drink. But this wine is really not bad. As he spoke, Wen Feng finished a cup and even clicked his tongue in praise. Yes, I succeeded. Qin Yu said with a smile. This time I have full confidence that I will get the throne. Come, congratulations to the future Gold Punishment Lord. Cheers, Wen Feng said jokingly. Qin Yu also raised his glass. Although the matter of guarding the elders was very important, it wasn't urgent. Qin Yu and Wen Feng chatted and drank for most of the day. On the other hand, Vice Sect Master Lu Lan, who had received the news of consecrated Lu Xing's return, was puzzled. Why didn't Lu Xing and Wen Feng come find him and head to the Guardian Elder's place together? Humph, that Lu Xing actually didn't come to my place. Could it be that you want me to go find him? Vice Sect Master Lu Lan was a bit angry. I don't believe that you don't want to know that secret. Only the experts that had the qualifications to become the successor of the Gold Punishment Lord would have the opportunity to know the secret. This secret would generally be revealed by the successive Guardian Elders. Although Wen Feng and Lu Lan had become successors very early on, the previous Gold Punishment Lord selection was rather strange. That was because when the previous Gold Punishment Lord ascended, not a single 15-star Emperor-level expert appeared. This caused the position of Gold Punishment Lord to be vacant for a very long time. Later on, Xing Yuan, Wen Feng and Lu Lan appeared one after another. Relying on his strength, Xing Yuan was directly selected as the successor. Since Wen Feng and Lu Lan failed, the Guardian Elder did not summon them. They're still not coming. Lu Lan was a bit anxious at his residence. Humph! In the end, Lu Lan merely snorted coldly. Without bothering to put on airs, he rushed toward Wen Feng's residence by himself. If he were to allow Qin Yu and Wen Feng to continue like this, who knows how long he would have to wait. Haha, so that's what you're worried about. Qin Yu burst into loud laughter. So the reason why this Wen Feng was so anxious to go to the Guardian Elder's residence was because he wanted to know a great secret of the Gold Punishment sect. What are you saying? Which expert in the entire Dark Star realm doesn't want to know that secret? That is something that only the successive successors are qualified to know. Last time, when Xing Yuan succeeded to the position of Gold Punishment Lord, the previous Gold Punishment Lord had already ascended. Because of this, the Guardian Elder simply did not tell us about that secret, said Wen Feng with a sigh. Qin Yu also grew curious. Exactly what is this secret? Qin Yu's eyes were flickering with curiosity. Consecrated Lu Xing, Great Captain Wen Feng, you're truly in a good mood. A loud laughter sounded. Vice Sect Master Lu Lan with an aged expression walked in. The two of you. Could it be that you're not planning to go to the Guardian Elder's residence? Qin Yu and Wen Feng glanced at each other. At the same time, the two of them revealed a slight smile. Sure enough, he couldn't hold himself back. Qin Yu and Wen Feng sighed in their hearts. Wen Feng stood up and said with a smile. Vice Sect Master Lu Lan, although the matter of going to the Guardian Elder's residence is important, it will be fine as long as we go there before His Majesty undergoes his heavenly tribulation. There's no need to rush for a day or two. Consecrated Lu Xing, don't you agree? Seeing Wen Feng's expression, Qin Yu naturally understood what Wen Feng was thinking. He nodded and said seriously, there's no need to rush for this matter. It's fine even if we wait for half a month or a month. Lu Lan's expression immediately turned slightly ugly. While Qin Yu and Wen Feng were not in a hurry, Lu Lan was. These two guys. Lu Lan frowned. Then he squeezed out a smile and said, Brother Wen Feng, Brother Lu Xing, I actually still have an important matter that I must attend to. However, if I don't go to the Guardian Elder's residence, I will not be able to feel at ease. I hope that the two of you can help me. Qin Yu and Wen Feng both lightly nodded. Brother Lu Xing, since Vice Sect Master Lu Lan has an important matter to attend to, we cannot trouble him. Let's go right now. Wen Feng said in a deadly earnest manner. That makes sense. Let's go right now. Qin Yu said in a deadly earnest manner as well. Only then did Vice Sect Master Lu Lan let out a sigh of relief. Thank you both of you. Qin Yu and the other two left the courtyard at the same time. They proceeded to fly toward the Inheritance Palace's mountain peak among the 18 mountains. The three of them flew side by side. Although the wind was blowing against their faces, the three of them were chatting and laughing with ease. Vice Sect Master Lu Lan, do you know of this secret? Qin Yu asked. Vice Sect Master Lu Lan shook his head and said, I'm not too sure. All I know is that this secret is related to the inheritance treasure. It is related to the great secret of the Gold Punishment sect. Wen Feng refused to say anything. After exchanging a few words, the three of them arrived outside the Inheritance Palace. The Inheritance Palace was like a prehistoric giant beast. The ancient stone building had a history of who knows how many hundreds of millions of years. The entire Inheritance Palace was emitting an ancient and bizarre aura. An oppressive feeling could be felt from the Inheritance Palace. Wen Feng and Vice Sect Master Lu Lan both felt an oppressive feeling in their hearts. Qin Yu was the only one who did not feel any change. This must be the aura contained within the inheritance treasure. Qin Yu thought to himself. This Inheritance Palace had existed for who knows how many hundreds of millions of years. Its entire body contained the energy of the inheritance treasure. That was why it was emitting such an oppressive aura. The three of you may enter now. The somewhat hoarse voice of the Guardian Elder rang out from within the Inheritance Palace. Qin Yu, Wen Feng and Lu Lan walked side by side. They walked into the Inherited Palace at almost the same pace. The three of them did not say a single word. After entering the Inheritance Palace, they saw a thin and dark old man seated cross-legged on a praying mat. It was none other than the Guardian Elder. There were also 3 praying mats placed before the Guardian Elder. Sit. The Guardian Elder opened his turbid eyes and looked at the 3 of them. Although his eyes were turbid, The three of them did not dare to be disrespectful to the guardian elder in the slightest. Every single guardian elder possessed a very high status. Even the three great sovereigns would have to treat them with respect. It was not because the guardian elders possessed powerful strength. Instead, it was because of their status. The reason for that was because the guardian elders were the people who knew the most about the inheritance treasure and all sorts of secrets. It was said that the guardian elders were even capable of contacting the seniors of the divine realm. Qin Yu, Wen Feng and Lu Lan sat down cross-legged in succession. Seeing the three of them, the guardian elder displayed a gratified smile. This generation's His Majesty is about to undergo his divine tribulation. Fortunately, there are three successors. The joke of leaving the position of the gold punishment lord empty will not happen again. Wen Feng, Lu Lan and Qin Yu were all silent. They were only listening to the guardian elder. The gold punishment lord, His Majesty Xing Yuan, is about to undergo his divine tribulation. According to the rules, the three of you are qualified to inherit the position of the gold punishment lord. Of course, the final decision will depend on your strength. Before that, I will tell you all some secrets regarding our gold punishment sect's inheritance treasure, the gold punishment spiritual pearl. The eyes of Qin Yu, Wen Feng and Lu Lan all shined. Gold punishment spiritual pearl. Only now did Qin Yu know the name of the inheritance treasure. The gold punishment spiritual pearl and the other two great spiritual pearls were both suddenly born several tens of billions of years ago. It also caused our dark star realm to end the fighting and killing between each other and walk towards peace. The guardian elder slowly said. Qin Yu, Wen Feng and Lu Lan all understood that this guardian elder was about to talk about the secrets of the gold punishment spiritual pearl. Next, I will tell you all a matter. This matter is something that only a very small number of people in the Dark Star Realm know about. After you all learn about it, you must absolutely not spread it out. The Guardian Elder's turbid eyes instantly turned clear as he stared at the three of them. Qin Yu, Wen Feng and Lu Lan all nodded. Gold Punishment Spiritual Pearl, Black Flame Spiritual Pearl and White Profound Spiritual Pearl. These three great spiritual pearls were actually bestowed to us, the people of the Dark Star Realm, by a single person. The Guardian Elder's aura suddenly changed. He became incomparably respectful. Qin Yu's heart trembled. Wen Feng and Lu Lan's expressions also changed greatly. A single person. Was it a senior of the Dark Star Realm? Qin Yu began to guess in his heart. Merely on the surface, he remained silent and waited for the Guardian Elder to continue. The Guardian Elder continued to speak respectfully. That Lord possessed the omnipotent ability to destroy the heavens and extinguish the earth. He had said that as our Dark Star Realm's clan is the natives of this cosmic space, we should possess a clan protection treasure. Thus, he bestowed 3 Grand Mist spiritual treasures to our clan. These treasures are capable of ensuring that our clan will never be extinguished. These treasures are the 3 great spiritual pearls. Grand Mist spiritual treasures. Qin Yu cried out in surprise. Qin Yu had never imagined that the 3 great spiritual pearls were actually Grand Mist spiritual treasures. Furthermore, they were bestowed to their clan by a single person. Consecrated Lu Xing, you've heard of Grand Mist spiritual treasures? The Guardian Elder asked in confusion. Qin Yu shook his head and said, "No, I've never heard of Grand Mist spiritual treasures. That's why I'm confused. Exactly what are Grand Mist spiritual treasures? They actually possess such powerful abilities." Wen Feng and Lu Lan also nodded. Wen Feng said, "Guardian Elder, do you know what Grand Mist spiritual treasures are?" The Guardian Elder shook his head and said, "I do not know. What I said earlier was the words of that Lord. This is also something that has been passed down through the generations of Guardian Elders. Let's not talk about this matter for now. Actually, whether or not you all know this secret is of little use." Wen Feng and Lu Lan both nodded. They only knew the origin of the 3 great spiritual treasures. So what if they knew? So what if they didn't know? Qin Yu began to guess in his heart. Who is that person? He said that as the Dark Star Realms clan is the natives of this cosmic space, they should possess a clan protection treasure. What does he mean by that? Is that person a god king? Or an exalted celestial? Right now, what I am going to tell you all is the most important matter. It is the use of the gold punishment spiritual pearl, said the guardian elder with a stern voice. Qin Yu immediately stopped his wild imagination. Wen Feng and Lu Lan also stared at the guardian elder. Among the three great spiritual treasures, the gold punishment spiritual pearl is the strongest. However, even if an 18-star Emperor-level expert were to fuse with the gold punishment spiritual pearl, they would still be unable to completely unleash the effects of the gold punishment spiritual pearl. However, even so, the effects of the gold punishment spiritual pearl are already astonishingly frightening. The guardian elder had a very solemn expression. Once one fuses with the gold punishment spiritual pearl, the first thing that will happen is the gold strength in one's body. With the assistance of the gold punishment spiritual pearl, the gold strength will increase by 10 times or even more. As for how much the gold strength will increase, it will mainly depend on the degree of fusion. The guardian elder's first words caused Wen Feng and Lu Lan's eyes to turn red with envy. To increase by several tens of times in an instant, how extraordinary would that be? This is not the main effect of the gold punishment spiritual pearl. The main effect of the gold punishment spiritual pearl is to fuse with one's body and increase one's body's strength by several tens of times. Its toughness will also greatly increase. The toughness of your bodies is already very strong. However, if you were to fuse with the gold punishment spiritual pearl, it could be said that even a high-quality divine artifact would be like mud in front of you. Even divine tribulations, no matter how they strike your bodies, they would not be able to injure you in the slightest. The guardian elder was a bit excited. The gold punishment lord who possesses the gold punishment spiritual pearl could be said to have an invincible defense. An invincible defense. He is capable of sweeping through the entire immortal, devil and demon realm by himself. Wen Feng and Lu Lan's breathing became hurried. No wonder the gold punishment lord was invincible. No wonder there were no battles in the Dark Star Realm. That was because the three great sovereigns were too powerful. Qin Yu lightly smiled in his heart. Invincible. Although they are invincible in the immortal devil and demon realm, would they be able to withstand a single spear strike from me? Qin Yu thought in his heart. Qin Yu understood that Grand Mist spiritual treasures were also ranked. Ordinary Grand Mist spiritual treasures would not be able to match up to his high-quality heavenly divine artifact. Furthermore, the divine spear Waning Snow was one of the high-quality heavenly divine artifacts that the craftsman god was most proud of. The craftsman god had crafted many acquired Grand Mist spiritual treasures. However, he was most proud of this divine spear Waning Snow. From this, one could imagine how powerful this divine spear Waning Snow was. Suddenly, Qin Yu recalled the words of the guardian elder. His expression changed. Earlier the guardian elder said. Qin Yu was so excited that his fingers started trembling. That gold punishment spiritual pearl's main effect is to increase one's body's strength by several tens of times and increase one's toughness greatly? Qin Yu's face turned red. He was so excited that he turned red. Furthermore, even the gold force in his body has increased by over 10 times. That entrance to the artifacts palace of the bewitching god temple contains many treasures. At the same time, it also contains the core control treasure of the bewitching god temple. Refining that treasure is equivalent to obtaining the bewitching god temple. However, last time I was unable to open the bewitching god temple at all. That was because I only managed to obtain 1/3 of my strength. Qin Yu's eyes shined. But if I were to fuse with the gold punishment spiritual pearl, then I would definitely be able to open the artifacts palace. If I were to open the artifacts palace, wouldn't that mean that I would possess the bewitching god temple? Increase one's strength by several tens of times. That would definitely allow him to open the bewitching god temple. In an instant, Qin Yu was so excited that his eyes turned red. Chapter 483. When the guard elder saw Qin Yu, Lu Lan and Wenfeng's shocked and excited expressions and blazing gazes, a satisfied smile appeared on his face. He was very fond of seeing the peak experts of the Gold Punishment sect acting like this before him. He had already done the same thing 3 times during his time as the guard elder. Every time he saw those super experts with extremely high status losing their self-control after learning about this secret, he would always feel a burst of satisfaction. Too powerful. Lu Lan's heart was filled with excitement. He had long thought that the Gold Punishment spiritual pearl was extremely powerful. However, he had never imagined that it would be this powerful. It was no wonder that none of the past Gold Punishment lords dared to make an enemy out of it. It was no wonder that it had never failed its divine tribulation. I must obtain it, I must. Lu Lan clenched his fists tightly. He was so excited that his fists were trembling slightly. He had never yearned for something so much. Wenfeng also had a yearning in his heart. His yearning for the Gold Punishment spiritual pearl was something that he understood very well when he saw Qin Yu and Lu Lan beside him. He was simply no match for Qin Yu and Lu Lan. Lu Xing is also like this. It would appear that he also yearns for the Gold Punishment spiritual pearl. Wenfeng sighed in his heart. Regardless of whether it was Wenfeng, Lu Lan or that guard elder, none of them knew that Qin Yu was not excited because of how exceptional the Gold Punishment spiritual pearl was. Instead, the reason why he was excited was the bewitching God Temple. As long as Qin Yu could fuse with the Gold Punishment spiritual pearl, he would be able to open the entrance to the artifact's palace. This also meant that Qin Yu would be able to obtain the entire bewitching God Temple. The Gold Punishment spiritual pearl is mine. Qin Yu's eyes suddenly burst forth with a sharp glint. This was the first time that Qin Yu was so determined to do something after coming to the Dark Star Realm. Qin Yu took a glance at Lu Lan beside him. Seeing Lu Lan's ice-cold gaze, Qin Yu smiled lightly in his heart. If he wanted to obtain the Gold Punishment spiritual pearl, would there be anyone who could stop him? The 3 of you ought to know how precious the inherited treasure, the Gold Punishment spiritual pearl is. Right now, the 3 of you possess the qualifications to obtain the Gold Punishment spiritual pearl and become the new Gold Punishment Lord. If you want to obtain the Gold Punishment spiritual pearl, then prepare well. After His Majesty Xing Yuan passes through the tribulation, the competition between the 3 of you will be held. The victor will become the new Gold Punishment Lord, said the guard elder with a smile. Vice Sect Master Lu Lan was the first to stand up. With a confident smile on his face, he said, "The next Gold Punishment Lord will be none other than me. Consecrated Lu Xing and Senior Captain Wenfeng's strength are much weaker than mine." "You seem to be very confident." Wenfeng frowned and said sarcastically, "Could it be that you wish to compete with me as well?" Vice Sect Master Lu Lan asked with a cold expression on his face. "Don't forget. Don't blame me if you accidentally lose your life in this competition." A threat, a blatant threat. Wenfeng smiled indifferently. "Confident? I am not greedy for the position of Gold Punishment Lord. What am I confident about? However, seeing how arrogant you are, I feel pity for you. Could it be that you really think that you can become the new Gold Punishment Lord?" Confidently, Lu Lan slightly raised his chin and said with a cold voice, "Other than me, who else is more qualified to become the next Gold Punishment Lord? Could it be that you 2 15-star Emperor-level experts wish to challenge me?" Presumptuous. An ice-cold voice sounded. At the same time, a ferocious aura pressed down on Lu Lan's body. Lu Lan felt that he was suffocating. Even his chest began to ache from the pressure. Lu Lan looked toward the direction of the aura. It was precisely Qin Yu who was coldly looking at him. "Lu Lan, could it be that you think that being awarded the title plate of 15-star Emperor-level expert means that you possess the strength of a 15-star Emperor?" Qin Yu said with a cold voice. "You concealed your strength." Vice Sect Master Lu Lan opened his eyes wide. Qin Yu sneered. He then said to Wenfeng, "Brother Wenfeng, let's go." Wenfeng was also happy to see Vice Sect Master Lu Lan suffering a setback. Immediately, he happily followed Qin Yu and left. Vice Sect Master Lu Lan looked at the backs of Qin Yu and Wenfeng as they left. His eyes flashed with a malicious radiance. He snorted in his heart. "Concealed your strength. How strong can you be even if you conceal your strength? Although your aura is strong, it does not necessarily mean that your strength is strong. You too want to seize the position of Gold Punishment Lord? In your dreams." Soon after, Vice Sect Master Lu Lan also left the inherited palace. Only the guard elder who was sitting cross-legged on the praying mat remained in the inherited palace. As the guard elder saw the three of them leaving in succession, a trace of a meaningful smile appeared on his face. "Oh, not bad. It seems that the battle this time around might be even more intense. That Lu Xing is truly unfathomable." Ever since Qin Yu, Wenfeng and Lu Lan met the guard elder and learned of his secret, they had been living in their own homes. The three of them stayed quietly in their respective residences, occasionally chatting with some friends. They were all waiting for a day. Several months later, the day when the Gold Punishment Lord Xing Yuan would undergo his tribulation. More and more experts gathered on the Gold Punishment Star. As time passed, the number of Emperor-level experts that had arrived on the Gold Punishment Star had reached a frightening number of 3,000. These Emperor-level experts were all from the Gold Punishment Sect, the Black Flame Sect and the White Profound Sect. The majority of these experts had stopped their bitter training on the Dark Stars and came here for the sake of watching the Gold Punishment Lord undergo his tribulation. There was no danger in the three great sovereigns undergoing their divine tribulations. However, the probability of success for ordinary people from the Dark Star realm was a bit lower. These Emperor-level experts naturally wanted to watch others undergo their divine tribulations in order to accumulate some experience so that they could prepare for their own divine tribulations in the future. Qin Yu and Wenfeng lived in the same palace. However, the two of them would spend most of their time in seclusion and would only occasionally gather together. In these days, a large number of Emperor-level experts from the Gold Punishment Sect had come to pay a visit to these two experts. Qin Yu and Wenfeng were sitting on either side of a long table. On this long table were a dozen or so exquisite dishes. Qin Yu was very fond of the dishes that were unique to the Dark Star realm. To cultivators, eating, drinking and so on was nothing more than a form of relaxation and enjoyment on the arduous path of cultivation. Brother Wenfeng, I had never imagined that the sacred mountain would be this lively in the past. Qin Yu drank a cup of wine and said with a smile on his face. Wenfeng nodded and said with a smile. In the past, there were at most several tens of Emperor-level experts on the sacred mountain. Never would I have expected that there would be over 1,000 Emperor-level experts now. As for the entire city, there are over 3,000 Emperor-level experts. The Emperor-level experts on the sacred mountain were practically all Emperor-level experts from the Gold Punishment Sect. As for the Emperor-level experts from the Black Flame Sect and the White Profound Sect, the majority of them lived in the city. Only those with high status would be able to come to the sacred mountain. Right at the moment when Qin Yu and Wenfeng were happily chatting, a guard walked over. "Lord Wenfeng, Lord Lu Xing, there are 9 Emperor-level experts outside who wish to pay a visit to my lords," said that guard respectfully. Qin Yu and Wenfeng glanced at each other. They both had bitter smiles on their faces. "Wenfeng, this is the second group of people that have come to pay us a visit today, right?" Qin Yu said with a smile. "In the past several tens of days, there have been 1 or 2 groups of people coming to pay us a visit practically every day." Wenfeng smiled helplessly. Qin Yu and Wenfeng. One was the large captain of the law enforcement squadron. The other was the only consecrated. The two of them possessed status equal to the Vice Sect Master. Furthermore, they were 2 of the 3 successors to the Gold Punishment Lord. It was very natural for a large number of people to pay them a visit. "Let them in," said Wenfeng. "Yes." That guard immediately stepped back. Qin Yu and Wen Feng both knew that it was rare for those people to pay them a visit. If they were to refuse them, it would be too unreasonable. After the arrival of one group of visitors after another, Qin Yu finally reached the limit of his patience. He directly announced that he was going to enter seclusion training. He would only come out the day before his tribulation. Actually, there was only about a month's time until the Gold Punishment Lord's tribulation. However, the closer it was to the end, the more people came to pay a visit to Qin Yu and Wen Feng. A day after Qin Yu entered seclusion training, Wen Feng was also forced to enter seclusion training. Thus, they could only use seclusion training to refuse all visitors. Inside the room, sunlight was shining in. Qin Yu was sitting cross-legged on the bed. His eyes were closed. However, in an instant Qin Yu had disappeared. At the same moment, on a meadow in the second layer space of the Jianglan's realm, Qin Yu suddenly appeared. He was still sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. Qin Yu planned to train for 30 days. In the second layer space of the Jianglan's realm, there were close to 3,000 days for him to train. In Qin Yu's mind, the soul Jin Dan was faintly emitting a 7-colored radiance. As for Qin Yu, his consciousness was unceasingly comprehending the comprehension of space left behind by Zhuo Qiumei. Decompose, dissect, generalize, merge, link. Qin Yu's consciousness was unceasingly going through this process of comprehension. In this process, Qin Yu had forgotten about time. He had forgotten about everything. As time passed, Qin Yu became excited for every bit of comprehension he gained. That sort of feeling was very wonderful. As he continued to research, the secrets of the mysterious cosmic space became less and less. His understanding of the nature of the cosmic space also became more and more profound. As this sort of research continued, Qin Yu even had a feeling that if this were to continue, then there would be a day when he would be able to completely research the entire cosmic space and control it. Qin Yu believed that at that time, he would be able to control the spatial laws. It was during this sort of training. Suddenly, a wonderful feeling entered Qin Yu's soul consciousness. Qin Yu's training had completely stopped. And at this moment, Qin Yu completely understood. Divine tribulation. My divine tribulation is truly quite early. Qin Yu opened his eyes. He had a slight smile on his face. With regards to his divine tribulation, Qin Yu had already made preparations. He had estimated that his divine tribulation would descend within several hundred years. And when he was training earlier, he had clearly sensed that his divine tribulation would descend 108 years later. It's shorter than I had imagined, Qin Yu thought in his heart. 108 years later, he would undergo his divine tribulation. After passing his divine tribulation, he would ascend to the divine realm not long after. Qin Yu was very clear about this. Once one passes his divine tribulation, he would ascend to the divine realm within a year. Time was very short. 108 years is sufficient for me to do a lot of things, Qin Yu muttered to himself. Soon the Gold Punishment Lord Xing Yuan will undergo his divine tribulation. After that, I will seize the position of the new sovereign. After fusing with the Gold Punishment Spiritual Pearl, I will go to the Bewitching God Temple and open the Artifacts Hall. Qin Yu immediately had a series of plans in his mind. Divine Realm. In Qin Yu's heart, the Divine Realm was not merely a higher-level world. More importantly, the Divine Realm was his true battlefield. The final battlefield where he had fought for so many years. In that place, he would defeat all of his rivals in love. Uncle Lon, Granny Yin Hua, their astonishing strength. Evidently, Li Er's clan is also an extraordinary clan in the Divine Realm. In order to defeat the other experts and break through the obstruction of the various powers, I can only obtain even stronger strength and even more abilities. Qin Yu's pupils shrunk slightly. The #1 artifact crafting expert of the Divine Realm, the craftsman god, Cheho Yuan's knowledge on artifact crafting was something that Qin Yu was determined to obtain. Qin Yu understood very well that in a world where the strong reigned supreme, The position of the #1 artifact crafting expert was extremely important. I must obtain the bewitching god temple. And before that, I must obtain the gold punishment spiritual pearl. Qin Yu thought in his heart. Immediately after, Qin Yu closed his eyes once more. I must seize the time to continue training. There's still a period of time before the gold punishment Lord Xing Yuan undergoes his divine tribulation. Qin Yu's consciousness was once again completely immersed in the spatial comprehension left behind by Zhou Qiumei. Dissecting and analyzing. Unknowingly time passed. In the second layer space of the Jianglan's realm, one possessed 100 times the amount of time compared to the outside world. This also allowed Qin Yu to train and comprehend even better. At a certain moment, Qin Yu felt a burst of throbbing in his consciousness. In an instant he completely woke up. Qin Yu, who was sitting on the grass, opened his eyes. He had a slight smile on his face. So it's already been 3,000 days. Soon after, Qin Yu disappeared from the second layer space of the Jianglan's realm. At Qin Yu's current level, if he wanted to wake up at any time then, even if Qin Yu's consciousness was completely immersed in the comprehension process, he would still be able to instantly wake up at the predetermined moment. Creak. After finishing his seclusion training, Qin Yu finally walked out of his room. Qin Yu raised his head and looked to the sky. Involuntarily, he took a deep breath of the fresh and cold air. There's truly a lot of people. Qin Yu's divine awareness immediately discovered that on the entire sacred mountain, there were at least 10,000 people flying back and forth in the sky. It was extremely lively. Tomorrow was the day of the Gold Punishment Lord's divine tribulation. It was normal for it to be this lively today. A youth who had been sitting on a stone bench in the courtyard for an unknown amount of time stood up in surprise upon seeing Qin Yu. Lord Lu Xing, you've finally finished your seclusion training. His Majesty instructed me to have you go to his place after finishing your seclusion training. His Majesty is going to undergo his divine tribulation tomorrow, right? Do you know where it is? Qin Yu casually asked. That youth immediately said respectfully. Lord Lu Xing. His Majesty is going to undergo his divine tribulation tomorrow. The location of His Majesty's divine tribulation has already been announced. It's a beautiful uninhabited planet not far from the gold punishment star called the 100-Flower Star. Right now, there are already thousands upon thousands of experts rushing to the 100-Flower Star. 100-Flower Star. Qin Yu smiled and nodded. Well then you can leave now. I will go to His Majesty's place immediately. Yes, Lord Lu Xing, that youth respectfully left. Chapter 484. Qin Yu's figure was like the wind. He directly flew into the boundless valley. As the mountain wind whistled, his gown fluttered in the wind. Qin Yu's long hair also fluttered in the wind. Qin Yu arrived at another mountain. It was one of the 18 mountain peaks. The palace on top of this mountain peak was the residence of the Gold Punishment Lord. Due to the fact that the Gold Punishment Lord was going to undergo his divine tribulation tomorrow, there were many Emperor-level experts gathered here today. However, practically all of these people were outside the palace. They did not dare to enter and disturb the Gold Punishment Lord Xing Yuan. However, Qin Yu did not care about them in the slightest. He directly walked toward the entrance of the palace with large strides. Who is that person? How come I've never seen him before? I don't know him. However, he seems to be an expert. I am unable to see through him. Some experts began to discuss with their friends in confusion. There were not many people in the Dark Star realm that had seen Qin Yu before. Especially during this period of time, Qin Yu had entered seclusion training. Only a small portion of the people that knew him had seen him before. Lord Lu Xing, a bald, robust man, said respectfully. Qin Yu lightly nodded his head and continued onward. As for the robust man beside him, he had paid a visit to Qin Yu and Wen Feng before. Thus he also knew them. So it's Lord Lu Xing. one of the three great successors to the next Gold Punishment Lord. Immediately, someone realized who Lu Xing was. The surrounding experts immediately began to greet Lu Xing respectfully. Lord Lu Xing. Lord Lu Xing. Every man, woman, young man, and old man was so respectful. This was how it was in the Dark Star realm. The more powerful one was, the more respect one would receive. As for Qin Yu, he was the only consecrator of the Gold Punishment sect. His status was equivalent to the Vice Sect Master and second only to the Gold Punishment Lord. Furthermore, he was one of the three great successors. For such an expert, who among the people present did not respect him from the bottom of their hearts. After a short moment, Qin Yu walked past the yellow stone path in front of the palace. The guard at the entrance of the palace immediately bowed respectfully and said, Lord Lu Xing, His Majesty has already given the order. When Lord Lu Xing arrives, you can go directly to the rear hall of the main hall. His Majesty will be waiting for you there. Okay. Qin Yu nodded slightly and then stepped into the palace. He did not even bother to ask where the rear hall was. That was because Qin Yu's divine awareness had already discovered the location of the Gold Punishment Lord Xing Yuan. He took a step forward. With a second step, he arrived at the entrance of the main palace. With another step, he entered the rear hall. However, the surrounding people who saw it felt very natural and harmonious, as if it was a matter of course. On a chair in the rear hall, the Gold Punishment Lord's eyes were slightly narrowed as he leaned on it. Beside his hand was a table. On the table was a pot of tea and 2 cups. On the other side of the table there was also a chair. Sit. Seeing that Qin Yu had entered, the Gold Punishment Lord Xing Yuan opened his eyes and pointed to another chair. Qin Yu nodded and sat down. He smiled and said, Your Majesty Xing Yuan doesn't seem to be worried about the divine tribulation at all. Even at this time you are still so relaxed. Xing Yuan picked up the teacup and took a sip. Then he cast his gaze toward Qin Yu. He fixed his gaze on Qin Yu and said, Lu Xing, you should also know about the benefits of the Gold Punishment Spiritual Pearl. Did you think that I would still need to care about the divine tribulation? The reason why I came to find you today is because I wanted to ask you about a matter. Qin Yu was unable to help himself from feeling puzzled. This Xing Yuan was someone who was about to ascend to the divine realm. Why would he come to find him? Your Majesty Xing Yuan, please speak. Qin Yu said straightforwardly. Xing Yuan nodded and said, Actually, I do not have any disciples in the Dark Star realm. I do not even have any relatives. Could be said that I am completely carefree. If it wasn't for the fact that I was slightly worried about the divine tribulation, I might not have come to seize the position of the Dark Star realm's overlord. Qin Yu nodded. Qin Yu knew very well that this Xing Yuan possessed the strength of an 18-star emperor. However, practically no one in the entire Dark Star realm knew of his existence. It was only later on that he suddenly appeared and seized the position of the Dark Star realm's overlord. That was why his reputation was so great. This sort of person truly did not care about authority. Lu Xing, actually, I was already astonished the first time I saw you. That's because your soul's realm is extremely high. It's so high that even I am unable to see through it. My soul's realm has already reached 18-star emperor level. Thus, I found it strange. An expert whose soul's realm is close to that of a deity, is his body's cultivation really only 15-star emperor level? Xing Yuan said with a light smile. Furthermore, you wanted to enter the bewitching god temple so much back then. This time when I saw you, I felt that you've changed. Although I am unable to explain it clearly, I felt that you've become stronger. Lu Xing, tell me the truth. Do you have absolute confidence in the competition for the position of the Dark Star Realm's overlord after I pass the divine tribulation? Do. Qin Yu nodded and said. Qin Yu did not conceal anything. That's more like it. Xing Yuan smiled happily. Can you tell me how powerful you are? If you don't possess the Gold Punishment Spiritual Pearl, you shouldn't be a match for me. Qin Yu said with a light smile. Xing Yuan's eyes shined. He started to laugh out loud. Indeed, it's as I imagined. I had already determined that your 15-star Emperor level cultivation was merely concealing your strength. It would appear that my guess was correct. Haha. Unfortunately, I now possess the gold punishment spiritual pearl. You are no longer a match for me. Qin Yu merely smiled indifferently. He did not try to explain himself. That's because there was no need for him to explain himself. The only doubt in my heart has finally been cleared. Comfortable, comfortable. Xing Yuan laughed out loud. You called for me just for this. Qin Yu was unable to refrain his shock. Why did you think I sought you out? Xing Yuan said with a beaming smile. After I became the Gold Punishment Lord, I had nothing to do. With my strength, everything was within my control. Only you. I felt that I was unable to control you, unable to understand you. Thus, I wanted to figure out your strength before ascending. That way, my heart would feel at ease. Qin Yu shook his head and smiled. Truly a person who was easily satisfied. However, being satisfied would bring joy. On the second day, a large number of experts rushed toward the 100-flower star. Every Gold Punishment Lord's divine tribulation was decided by the Gold Punishment Lord himself. However, the great majority of divine tribulations were made public. It was simply impossible for the Gold Punishment Lord to fail his divine tribulation. The 100-flower star was an extremely beautiful planet. There were many different kinds of beautiful flowers and plants. Resting among the flowers and watching the Gold Punishment Lord's divine tribulation, where else could one find such a day? A sea of people. Densely packed people were gathered on the 100-flower star. At this moment, several 100,000 Dark Star Realms experts were gathered on the 100-flower star. To the Dark Star Realm, several 100,000 people was an enormous number. After all, even if the entire Dark Star Realm were to be added together, their population would still be pitifully small. Qin Yu, Wen Feng, Lu Lan, Bao Yu and the other experts were all at the very front. They were the closest to the Gold Punishment Lord. As for the Gold Punishment Lord Xing Yuan himself, he was standing in the middle of a ring-shaped open space. The Black Flame Lord, White Profound Lord and the others were also sitting beside Qin Yu and the others. The people present were all chatting and laughing. There was not the slightest trace of nervousness. Lu Xing, have you seen a divine tribulation before? Wen Feng said to Qin Yu. Qin Yu had already seen the Saiyan Emperor's divine tribulation before. Merely, Qin Yu wanted to conceal his identity. Thus he smiled and said, I have never seen it before. Wen Feng smiled and said, I've already seen it several times. Brother Lu Xing, let me explain it to you. This divine tribulation is separated into 3 stages. The first stage is the deep blue-colored ancient formation lightning tribulation. The second stage of the divine tribulation is the divine flame tribulation. The divine flame is extremely powerful. If it were to burn for a long period of time, even 17 or 18 star experts would be injured. The strongest stage of the divine tribulation is the third stage of the divine tribulation. The third stage of the divine tribulation is a kind of mixed tribulation. It contains gray-colored mist and gray-colored lightning attacks. Many of the experts of our Dark Star Realm were injured by it. Hearing up to this point, Qin Yu began to carefully listen. Although he had seen the Saiyan Emperor's divine tribulation, he had only seen the outer appearance. As for the deeper layers, Qin Yu did not know about it at all. As for the experts of the Dark Star Realm, it was clear that their understanding of the divine tribulation was much higher than the people of the immortal, devil and demon realm. Brother Wen Feng, don't most of the experts of the Dark Star Realm have reached 17-star Emperor level? Why are they unable to pass the divine tribulation? Qin Yu asked in confusion. 17-star Emperor level, logically speaking, was equivalent to the strength of the 9th stage of the 9 steps dark gold body. With that strength, one should have 100% success rate in passing the divine tribulation. Wen Feng shook his head and said, although 17-star Emperor level experts are very powerful and have a very high probability of passing the divine tribulation, there are still many people who have died. As for the reason, you'll know after His Majesty the Gold Punishment Lord finishes his divine tribulation. You're deliberately keeping me in suspense, said Qin Yu with a smile. The divine tribulation has begun. Wen Feng's expression suddenly turned serious. Qin Yu immediately grew silent. Right at this moment, the entire 100-flower star suddenly grew quiet. Not a single person among the several 100,000 people actually made a ruckus. Everyone had turned from noisy to absolutely silent. This sort of oppressive atmosphere had also caused Qin Yu to become serious. A gale suddenly started to blow. Countless flowers were blown into the air. It was as if the gloomy sky was splashed with ink by a deity. In an instant, black clouds began to roll about in the sky. The entire sky turned pitch black. The oppressive might of the divine tribulation began to fill the air. From the rolling black clouds, an enormous red vortex appeared. This red vortex was over 1,000 miles in circumference. The red vortex was spinning unceasingly. At the same time, deep blue-colored electric snakes began to flow through it. Chi-Chi. At this moment, Qin Yu discovered that the space surrounding the Gold Punishment Lord Xing Yuan had completely distorted. Xing Yuan's figure had also turned somewhat fuzzy. A millstone-shaped ancient formation began to emerge from the red vortex. The millstone-shaped ancient formation was formed by 9 deep blue-colored lightnings. These 9 deep blue-colored lightnings were unceasingly circulating within the ancient formation. The first divine tribulation. Ancient formation lightning tribulation. Against the Gold Punishment Lord Xing Yuan, the divine tribulation is simply not a challenge at all, thought Qin Yu in his heart. Indeed, it was as Qin Yu had anticipated. When the millstone-sized ancient formation lightning tribulation descended, before it even touched the Gold Punishment Lord, Xing Yuan casually shot a golden ray of light toward it. That was the gold force that had its might increased by over 10 times. It directly shattered the millstone-sized ancient formation lightning tribulation. The second divine tribulation. Divine fire tribulation. That enormous red vortex was separated into an inner and an outer vortex. The inner and outer vortices were spinning in opposite directions. The friction between the two vortices created traces of black-colored flames that fused together and formed a black-colored fire dragon. Too weak, too weak. Qin Yu sighed in his heart. Sure enough, when the fire dragon formed by the divine fire enveloped the Gold Punishment Lord, the Gold Punishment Lord's entire body emitted a dazzling golden radiance. The Gold Punishment Lord was incomparably dazzling like the sun. The divine fire dissipated. The second divine tribulation also disappeared. Brother Wen Feng, 2 successive divine tribulations were easily broken through. Could it be that there's something extraordinary about the third divine tribulation? Qin Yu sent a voice transmission to Wen Feng beside him. Wen Feng shook his head and said, Lu Xing, the strongest of the 3 divine tribulations, is the last one. Even if His Majesty the Gold Punishment Lord were to succeed, it would not be as easy as the first 2 divine tribulations. The third divine tribulation is very strong. Qin Yu was a bit puzzled. It is truly very strong. Wen Feng firmly stared at the red vortex in the sky. However, Qin Yu did not believe that to be the case. He still clearly remembered the scene of the Saiyan Emperor undergoing his divine tribulation. When the final third divine tribulation descended, the Saiyan Emperor's body emitted jade-colored ripples and easily broke through the third divine tribulation. In Qin Yu's heart, this third divine tribulation ought to be as weak as the first 2 divine tribulations. The black clouds that covered the entire sky were rolling about. The enormous red vortex continued to revolve at the same frequency. Traces of gray-colored fog began to seep out from the red vortex. The gray-colored fog from the over 1,000 miles wide red vortex gathered together and formed a large lump of gray-colored fog with a circumference of several hundred meters. The several hundred-meter wide gray-colored fog descended and instantly covered the entire region surrounding the Gold Punishment Lord. As for the Gold Punishment Lord Xing Yuan, He was naturally enveloped within the fog. Within the gray-colored fog were traces of gray-colored lightning that were unceasingly moving about. When those gray-colored lightning struck the Gold Punishment Lord's body, they were simply unable to break through his defense. Qin Yu's divine awareness was able to easily see this scene. It would appear that even the divine lightning is unable to harm the Gold Punishment Lord in the slightest. Qin Yu thought in his heart. After the Gold Punishment spiritual pearl fused with his body's toughness has increased. His gold power has increased. The increase is simply too great. However, right at this moment, Qin Yu's expression changed. In the center of the gray-colored fog, the breathing of the Gold Punishment Lord who was standing still sounded. That was because the sound of his breathing was very loud. It was like the sound of bellows. Huff, huff, huff. The Gold Punishment Lord Xing Yuan was gasping for breath in a low voice. His two eyes were completely red. It was as if he was about to go crazy. Merely, his hands were tightly clenched. The veins on his forehead were also bulging. What's going on? Qin Yu was shocked. Chapter 485. Ah! The Gold Punishment Lord Xing Yuan suddenly raised his head and roared crazily. His entire body emitted an astonishing golden radiance. The golden radiance pierced through the gray-colored fog. Surging gold force rushed out like a tide, sweeping away the surrounding gray-colored fog and gray-colored lightning. The enormous red-colored vortex began to slowly dissipate. The rolling black-colored clouds also merged with the heaven and earth and disappeared. The heaven and earth once again returned to normal. A slight breeze started to blow. The space surrounding the Gold Punishment Lord Xing Yuan also returned to normal. The wind blew through Qin Yu's long hair. The ends of his hair fluttered on Qin Yu's face. A smile appeared on Qin Yu's face. Success! Congratulations, Brother Xing Yuan. The Black Flame Lord Wu Shan was the first to speak. Brother Xing Yuan, congratulations on successfully passing the divine tribulation. The White Profound Lord Jumi also spoke. Qin Yu, Wen Feng, Bao Yu, Lu Lan. A large group of experts in the surroundings all began to congratulate Xing Yuan. Although it was natural for Xing Yuan to successfully pass the divine tribulation, passing the divine tribulation meant that Xing Yuan was about to ascend to the divine realm. After passing the divine tribulation, one would generally ascend to the divine realm in less than a year. Haha, I'm in a bit of a sorry state. Xing Yuan's forehead was covered with sparkling sweat. This third stage mixed tribulation is truly powerful. In the end, I managed to withstand it. The Black Flame Lord Wu Shan laughed heartily. Xing Yuan, you're pretty good. You managed to withstand the Heart's Demon's invasion with only your willpower. I reckon that you'll have to vent it out. Heart's Demon. Aren't there all kinds of illusions that affect one's mind at the beginning of the divine tribulation? Qin Yu asked in confusion. According to what Qin Yu knew, during the process of passing the divine tribulation, there were illusions that affected one from beginning to end. Why would the Black Flame Lord mention the Heart's Demon's invasion? Lu Xing, you don't even know about this. Xing Yuan laughed heartily. The Black Flame Lord, the White Profound Lord, Wen Feng and the others also laughed. Their laughter caused Qin Yu to feel somewhat embarrassed. The Black Flame Lord Wu Shan laughed heartily. Lu Xing, this third stage divine tribulation is a mixed tribulation. It contains divine lightning and Heart's Demon fog. Heart Demon fog. Qin Yu recalled the gray fog. White Profound King Jumi nodded and said, Lu Xing, you are right. The God tribulation was influenced by the illusion from the beginning, but it was just an illusion. It wanted to affect your mind. But the heart devil mist of the third tribulation is different. That gray mist doesn't seem to have any attack power, but once it envelopes you, you will be attacked by all sorts of heart devils. Once the inner demons enter the body, it will be troublesome. Xing Yuan sighs and says, that divine lightning can't hurt me at all, but that heart devil ignores defense and only attacks my soul. This heart demon ignores everything else, but it can be used to defend or attack. However, in the process of attacking or defending, you can be affected by the heart demon. Xing Yuan laughed. Thus, the higher your soul cultivation, the easier it is to resist this heart demon. Wen Feng said from the side. His Majesty, the Gold Punishment Lord, is still fine. He possesses an inherited treasure and does not fear the divine lightning in the slightest. He could wholeheartedly destroy and resist the inner demons. However, ordinary people would have to fend off the inner demons and the divine lightning at the same time. This is the powerful aspect of the third tribulation. Only now did Qin Yu completely understand. No wonder the Saiyan Emperor was so relaxed back then. Qin Yu thought in his heart. The Saiyan Emperor had already formed the soul Jin Dan. Thus, his soul cultivation was extremely high. Thus, it was naturally incomparably easy for him to resist the inner demons. The White Profound Lord Jumi laughed calmly. Actually, undergoing the third stage of the deity tribulation isn't that troublesome. All you have to do is block the attacks of your inner demons. All you have to do is block them for a period of time. When the time comes, the inner demon fog will automatically dissipate. As for Brother Xing Yuan, you tried to destroy it in vain. Thus, you can't blame others for being affected by the inner demons. Haha, since my body does not fear the divine lightning, I will naturally have to properly fight against the inner demons. If I were to only defend and not attack, wouldn't it be too boring? Xing Yuan laughed and said. Only now did Qin Yu come to a realization. The reason why Xing Yuan was affected by the inner demons was mainly because he took the initiative to attack. In the future, when I, Xiao He and Fei are to withstand the divine tribulation together, I will take the initiative to attack and directly eliminate these inner demons. Qin Yu began to think about how to withstand the divine tribulation in the future. When the three of them undergo the divine tribulation together, the strength of the inner demons would not be 3 times stronger than the inner demons of a single person. Instead, it would increase exponentially. It might be 8 times, 9 times, or even stronger. The divine tribulation had passed. Immediately, a large group of people began to leave. As for the Gold Punishment Lord Xing Yuan, the Black Flame Lord Wu Shan, the White Profound Lord Jumi, as well as some of the Vice Sect Masters, consecrated, great elders and others, they all began to leave the 100-Flower Star. This group of people with the highest status in the Dark Star realm arrived at the Gold Punishment Star together, and began to fly toward the sacred mountain. Over a dozen people were flying together and chatting with one another. "Oh Lu Xing, my divine tribulation has passed. In a short period of time, the battle for the position of the new Gold Punishment Lord will begin. You must not be careless and end up losing your position as Gold Punishment Lord," Xing Yuan said with a frank smile. Once those words were said, Vice Sect Master Lu Lan, who was 10 meters away from them, immediately had a gloomy expression. Right when Qin Yu wanted to say something, he was immediately interrupted by someone. "Oh Xing Yuan, judging from what you said, it seems that you've determined Lu Xing to be the next Gold Punishment Lord?" The Black Flame Lord Wu Shan said with a clear voice. A handsome youngster with long red hair nodded and said, "Judging from what Your Majesty Xing Yuan said, could it be that consecrated Lu Xing's strength is even stronger than Vice Sect Master Lu Lan's?" This handsome youngster with long red hair was precisely the Vice Sect Master of the Black Flame Sect. He was also a 16-star Emperor-level expert. Qin Yu had already discovered the sinister gaze cast toward him by Lu Lan. This Xing Yuan is truly a blabbermouth, Qin Yu thought in his heart. However, Qin Yu did not care about it. That was because he already had the intention to become the next Gold Punishment Lord. Thus, it was natural for him to be a bit overbearing. Xing Yuan took a glance at Lu Lan beside him. "Lu Lan, let me remind you of this. Lu Xing's strength is not inferior to yours. I will ascend to the divine realm in 5 months. As for the competition for the position of the next Gold Punishment Lord, it should be held in 3 months' time." Before Xing Yuan ascended, he was still the Gold Punishment Lord. Only after Xing Yuan ascended would the new Gold Punishment Lord be able to officially inherit the position of Gold Punishment Lord. 3 months. In 3 months' time I will definitely win. The position of Gold Punishment Lord will definitely be mine. Lu Lan said coldly. Then, he turned into a ray of light and flew toward his residence. He did not care about the others at all. Lu Xing, do not disappoint me. Xing Yuan looked to Qin Yu with a beaming smile. A trace of craftiness flashed through his narrowed eyes. Qin Yu felt helpless in his heart. This Xing Yuan who was about to ascend to the divine realm was so bored that he decided to toy with him. He didn't even allow him to live a peaceful life. The victor of the competition for the position of Gold Punishment Lord in 3 months' time will definitely be me. There is no need to doubt this. Qin Yu looked to the crowd with a smile on his face. Although he was smiling, the confidence he emitted was something that the surrounding people could clearly sense. Lu Lan's strength is very strong. However, this Lu Xing's strength seems to be even stronger. Furthermore, he is very mysterious. The competition for the position of the new Gold Punishment Lord is going to be interesting. The White Profound Lord Jumi said in a low voice. As for the 3 great successors, Wen Feng, he was completely disregarded. Wen Feng himself did not have the slightest bit of resentment. After all, the difference in strength between him and Lu Lan was too great. In 3 months' time, Qin Yu and Lu Lan were both in seclusion training in their own residences. To the outside world, the 2 great competitors for the position of Gold Punishment Lord were currently undergoing their final bitter training. As for the final successor, Wen Feng, he announced that he was giving up on the competition for the position of Gold Punishment Lord. Wen Feng did not wish to be humiliated and taught a lesson by Lu Lan when he was fighting against him. 3 months later, several thousand miles to the east of the Gold Punishment Star City, at a spacious plain, Qin Yu and Lu Lan were fighting. Before the battle, a large number of people had already gathered here. Xing Yuan, Zhu Mi and Wu Shan, the 3 great sovereigns, were all gathered here. All sorts of emperor-level experts and some other experts were also gathered here. Compared to observing the Gold Punishment Lord's tribulation, this sort of battle for the position of Gold Punishment Lord was much more attractive. Especially this battle where both sides were extremely powerful. This sort of battle could be said to be rarely seen in 10,000 years. It's been a long time since I've seen a battle between super experts. Furthermore, it's a battle of life and death. The Black Flame Lord Wu Shan laughed mischievously. For the position of Gold Punishment Lord, one would generally go all out in a battle. If one did not possess sufficient strength, one would have already admitted defeat. For example, Wen Feng. In all these years of competition for the position of Gold Punishment Lord, it is very rare for 2 17-star Emperor level and above experts to fight against each other at the same time. The White Profound Lord Zhu Mi nodded and said. Xing Yuan smiled and said. That Lu Xing is undoubtedly going to win this battle. There's truly a lot of people here. Wu Shan swept his gaze to his surroundings. A large number of experts were gathered densely on the plain. The number of people gathered here was even greater than the number of people who were watching the divine tribulation last time. As for the people at the very front, it was still the 3 great sovereigns and their group of people. Before the 3 great sovereigns was the spacious battlefield. At this moment, there was still not a single person on the battlefield. The 2 sides of the battle had yet to appear. Only the wind was blowing and the grass on the ground was moving up and down. Who? A figure suddenly appeared on the spacious battlefield's grass. It was precisely Qin Yu, who was wearing a long gown. His long gown was being blown by the wind. Even Qin Yu's long hair was being blown by the wind. As for Qin Yu himself, he was standing there with his hands behind his back. It was as if he was a statue that had existed since ancient times. Only that pair of eyes were closed. The clamor and chatter of the entire prairie immediately disappeared. In an instant, it became extremely quiet. Only the rustling sound of the grass being blown by the wind could be heard. The rustling sound seemed to be very loud. Qin Yu's eyes suddenly opened. He raised his head slightly and looked towards the east. a figure shot over at high speed like an eagle. His cold eyes were staring at Qin Yu. It was Lu Lan. Lu Lan is here. The eyes of Wu Shan, Xing Yuan, and Zhu Mi, the three great sovereigns, lit up at the same time. The densely packed crowd of spectators all held their breaths. Hua! Lu Lan retracted his body and stood proudly to the south of Qin Yu. Qin Yu was in the north. Lu Lan was in the south. The two of them faced each other with a distance of about 100 meters between them. Lu Xing, you had better admit defeat. Otherwise I might accidentally kill you. That would be terrible. Lu Lan said coldly. You speak a lot of nonsense. If you want to fight, then fight. If you are timid, then just admit defeat. Qin Yu said calmly. When his eyes opened and closed, an extremely cold light shot out like lightning, releasing a terrifying pressure. Xing Yuan, Wu Shan, Zhu Mi, and the other three great sovereigns were all shocked. What a powerful soul. The three of them were secretly shocked. Fighting depends on the body and strength. What's the use of having a powerful soul? Lu Lan said with a cold smile. Then, all the muscles on his body began to bulge. Rays of golden light flowed all over his body. Hearing Lu Lan's words, Qin Yu secretly shook his head. He actually said that having a powerful soul was useless. Low-level fights depended on energy, body, and so on. But at a high level, it depended on the understanding of space and even time. That depended on the realm of the soul. Lu Lan growled. Hua! His figure instantly appeared in front of Qin Yu. His sharp claws reached Qin Yu's head. With Lu Lan's body, which was comparable to a high-grade divine artifact, this claw was extremely terrifying. The three great sovereigns frowned. Wan Feng, Bao Yu, and the others frowned as well. Attacking the head as soon as he arrived, it was obvious that he wanted to kill him. But in a fight for the position of sovereign, if one side was killed, it was inevitable. So they didn't say anything. But for Lu Lan to attack as soon as he arrived, it was a bit too much. Lu Lan smiled. He had already grabbed Qin Yu's head. But his smile instantly froze. Because he couldn't feel any resistance. It was as though he was air. It was an afterimage. It's my turn to attack. A clear voice rang out across the entire plain. Everyone watching the battle heard it clearly. Lu Lan turned around with lightning speed. He looked towards the sky and saw Qin Yu standing in midair. Lu Lan transformed into a sharp arrow and shot towards Qin Yu in midair. In contrast, Qin Yu slowly raised his right fist. He simply stood in midair, motionless. Die! Lu Lan had already arrived in front of Qin Yu. He was about to attack. Qin Yu punched as well. Qin Yu's punch wasn't fast. Furthermore, it was aimed at Lu Lan's chest. Sigh. Lu Xing is still being merciful. He shouldn't have attacked his chest. He should have attacked his. Xing Yuan sighed in his heart. But halfway through his sigh, his expression froze. It wasn't just him. The expressions of Black Flame Lord Wu Shan, White Profound Lord Zhu Mi, and the other super experts froze. This was because these super experts had clearly seen the scene before them. It was a scene that they couldn't believe. Qin Yu's fist had originally been aimed at Lu Lan's chest. But Xing Yuan, Zhu Mi, and the others all saw. Lu Lan's entire body suddenly moved downwards for no apparent reason. The fist that had been aimed at Lu Lan's chest just so happened to smash into Lu Lan's head. Lu Lan, who was completely unprepared, only had disbelief and shock in his eyes. Nap. Qin Yu's fist was like a watermelon. The sound of bones shattering could be heard. Lu Lan's head was smashed apart. Lu Lan's soul also began to slowly dissipate. Before dying, Lu Lan was still in disbelief. Why is space forcing my body to move downwards? What's going on? Before his soul dissipated, he received Qin Yu's divine sense voice transmission. Didn't you say that a powerful soul is useless? This is a kind of usage of the space after one's soul is strong enough, said Qin Yu via divine awareness voice transmission. So it's... Only at this moment did Lu Lan come to a realization. At this moment, his soul had completely dissipated. Lu Lan's corpse was falling downwards. Qin Yu thought to himself. The principle behind the heaven-startling single stick strike was used on the fist. Qin Yu looked at his right fist that had smashed apart Lu Lan's head. A slight smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. At this moment, a burst of cheers that could topple mountains and overturn seas sounded. Those gold punishment sex cultivators with low levels of martial power did not see the scene of Lu Lan's body instantly falling. However, these people knew that the new gold punishment lord had already been decided. It was this Lord Lu Xing. Chapter 486. The main peak of the Gold Punishment Star's sacred mountain was incomparably noisy. That was because a grand banquet was being held here. A large number of experts were invited to this grand banquet. Practically all of the upper echelons of the Dark Star realm were gathered here. Compliments, congratulations. All sorts of voices were sounding unceasingly. As the main character of this banquet, Qin Yu felt a slight headache. That was because no one saw him and they were all extremely enthusiastic. He could not be too rude. If it wasn't for the fact that this banquet was being held for me, I would have already left. Qin Yu thought in his heart. However, on the surface, Qin Yu was smiling. At the same time, he raised his cup and drank with a white-clothed, white-haired old man. Lu Xing, after I ascend to the divine realm, you will be the new Gold Punishment Lord. As the Gold Punishment Lord, you should at least know some of the experts of our Dark Star Realm's three great sects. This is the great elder of the White Profound sect, Fu Xian. Xing Yuan introduced. In this banquet, Qin Yu was the busiest person. As the new Gold Punishment Lord who was about to succeed the throne, many people's attitude toward Qin Yu had clearly changed. After all, the Gold Punishment Lord was the leader of the three great sovereigns. Only when the sky turned pitch black did the banquet disperse. As for Qin Yu, he immediately teleported to the sky above the mountain and flew toward his residence. As the cold wind of the night blew on his face, Qin Yu felt his mind become much clearer. I'm finally free. Qin Yu smiled and sighed. Lu Xing, wait for me. A familiar voice sounded. Qin Yu turned around to look. Wen Feng arrived beside Qin Yu after a short while. Wen Feng smiled at Qin Yu. Then he said, Lu Xing, I have to thank you this time. Qin Yu asked in confusion. What are you thanking me for? Thanking you for killing Lu Lan. Wen Feng said with a smile. If you hadn't killed Lu Lan, if you had ascended before Lu Lan, I would have been done for. That Lu Lan was not on good terms with me. Qin Yu finally understood. Qin Yu knew very well that one of the reasons why he had killed Lu Lan this time around was because Lu Lan had unleashed a killing blow upon him the moment he arrived. Evidently, he had not shown any mercy at all. The second reason was to help Wen Feng. You don't have to thank me for something like this. If I was weak, Lu Lan would have killed me as well, said Qin Yu calmly. Yes, Wen Feng agreed. Soon after, he smiled and looked at Qin Yu. When His Majesty Xing Yuan ascends to the divine realm, you'll be able to fuse with the Gold Punishment spiritual pearl. At the same time, you'll be able to announce your identity as the sovereign of the divine realm. Qin Yu nodded. There were still 2 months before Xing Yuan's ascension. From Xing Yuan's divine tribulation to the 3 months of fighting for the monarch's position. In the 2 months of waiting, Qin Yu had been training in his room in the palace and had not entered the second layer space of the Zhonglan's realm. This was because the timing of the divine tribulation was very special. Even though Qin Yu was hiding in the Zhonglan's realm, the divine tribulation still arrived. The divine tribulation was a sort of universal law. Simply ignored all the obstructions of space. Qin Yu sensed that the divine tribulation would arrive in 108 years. Regardless of whether Qin Yu was hiding in the Zhonglan's realm or the immortal devil and demon realm, the divine tribulation would arrive in 108 years. The time of the divine tribulation's arrival was not determined by the flow of time in different universal spaces. Instead, it was calculated by the time that the person undergoing the divine tribulation experienced. For example, Qin Yu had spent 108 years in the second layer space of the Jianglan's realm. At this time, only a bit more than a year had passed in the immortal devil and demon realm. However, at that time the divine tribulation would still arrive. Thus, Qin Yu was not worthy of entering the second layer space of the Jianglan's realm. 2 months of quiet training. With Qin Yu's current state of mind, quiet training for a long period of time was extremely easy. When he opened his eyes, it was already the day before Xing Yuan ascended to the divine realm. Outside of the Gold Punishment Lord Xing Yuan's palace, there were currently over 1,000 people gathered. The majority of these 1,000 people were from the Gold Punishment sect. There were also a few experts from the Black Flame sect and the White Profound sect. This group of people had gathered here precisely for the sake of seeing Xing Yuan off. At the front of the 1,000+ people were Qin Yu, Wu Shan, Ju Mi and a dozen other people. Brother Xing Yuan, I've heard that the divine realm is relatively chaotic and that the battles are extremely fierce. When you arrive in the divine realm, you must work hard in your training. Do not weaken the reputation of our dark star realm," said the Black Flame Lord Wu Shan to Xing Yuan while laughing. Although the Gold Punishment Lords were powerful, they must return the Gold Punishment Spiritual Pearl to their clan before ascending. A Gold Punishment Lord without the Gold Punishment Spiritual Pearl would only possess strength equivalent to an ordinary ascended Dark Star Realm expert. He would not possess any advantage in the Divine Realm. In the future, he would have to rely on his own efforts to struggle. Haha, I still possess this bit of confidence. Xing Yuan laughed heartily. At the same time, he looked to Qin Yu. Lu Xing, after I leave, you'll be the Gold Punishment Lord. Remember, the Gold Punishment Lord is the leader of the 3 great sovereigns. If that madman Wu Shan were to act arrogant toward you, you must teach him a lesson. Qin Yu merely smiled. Wu Shan glared at Xing Yuan. Hey, Xing Yuan, don't play with me. You've also seen the fight between this Lu Xing and Lu Lan. He's already this powerful without fusing with his inherited treasure. Once he fuses with it, I reckon that he'll be even stronger than you. For you to have him teach me a lesson is too excessive. Qin Yu suddenly frowned. Is he about to ascend? Qin Yu felt that a strange change had occurred in the entire cosmic space. Last time, when Cyan Emperor ascended, Qin Yu's soul's level was still not high enough. Thus, he was unable to sense that slight change. However, the current Qin Yu was able to clearly sense that slight change. Xing Yuan's expression gradually turned serious. He no longer joked around with the crowd. Xing Yuan swept his gaze across the crowd. With a light smile he said, "Everyone, I am about to ascend. See you in the divine realm. See you in the divine realm." Wu Shan, Ju Mi, Qin Yu, Bao Yu, Wenfeng and the others all said. Xing Yuan's body slowly rose up. Misty starlight shot out from his body. At this moment, Xing Yuan possessed an aura that made people look up to him. Xing Yuan lightly smiled at the crowd. Immediately, the misty starlight around his body increased greatly. In an instant, it covered his entire body. Like teleportation, Xing Yuan disappeared. He disappeared from the immortal devil and demon realm. Qin Yu slightly frowned. From the moment he sensed that Xing Yuan was about to ascend, Qin Yu had fused his soul with the entire universe. As for the principle behind ascension, Qin Yu also wanted to understand it. What principle is this? The phenomenon of ascension is very similar to teleportation and greater teleportation. It's also when one suddenly disappears and then reappears in another place. However, ascension is to directly appear in another space. What principle is this? Qin Yu was pondering unceasingly. However, Qin Yu was unable to obtain an answer to this question even after pondering for half a day. Ascension, this could also be considered as a remarkable ability. However, it is a remarkable ability that belongs to the universe. If I am able to comprehend this remarkable ability, wouldn't I be able to easily travel between two spaces? Qin Yu sighed in his heart. If the people of the divine realm were to hear this, they would definitely laugh at Qin Yu for being too rampant. After all, even high-level heavenly deities were unable to easily travel between two spaces. The second day of Xing Yuan's ascension, only Qin Yu was present outside the entrance of the Inheritance Palace. Qin Yu raised his head to look at this ancient Inheritance Palace. On the ground beside the Inheritance Palace, there were a lot of dried branches and fallen leaves. Once I fuse with the gold punishment spiritual pearl, I will possess sufficient strength to open the bewitching God Temple's Artifacts Palace. Qin Yu recalled the large amount of treasures in the Artifacts Palace. Those were all left behind by the master of the bewitching God Temple, Che-Ho Yuan. Among them, the most precious was the bewitching God Temple's core refined from the 9 purple origin flame beads. Your Majesty Lu Xing, you can come in. The guard elder's hoarse voice sounded. Qin Yu took a light breath and then stepped into the Inheritance Palace. Once he entered the Inheritance Palace, Qin Yu's gaze was involuntarily cast toward the altar in the center. The 2 altars that he had seen before merely possessed the faint aura of an inherited treasure. However, today, Qin Yu discovered that the aura of this altar was over 100 times denser than before. Your Majesty Lu Xing, a dark and thin old man walked out from the corner. It was that guard elder. The guard elder pointed to the center of the altar with his withered yellow finger. Your Majesty Lu Xing, the gold punishment spiritual pearl is within the altar. In order to fuse with the gold punishment spiritual pearl, there are some things that you must pay attention to. Your Majesty Lu Xing, please listen carefully. Guard elder, please speak, Qin Yu said. At this moment, Qin Yu did not dare to be distracted in the slightest. That was because he knew that the refinement of Grand Mist spiritual treasures was extremely difficult. Sometimes, even if one's soul's level was high, it would still be useless. Of course, the higher the level of one's soul, the easier it would be. Your Majesty Lu Xing, in order for the gold punishment spiritual pearl to fuse with your body, you must first drip your blood on it to recognize it as your master. However, you must remember one thing. When you drip your blood on it, you must pour your gold force into the blood knight. Only then will the gold punishment spiritual pearl absorb it. Otherwise, it will not absorb it. The guard elder slowly said. Qin Yu nodded his head. Refining the gold punishment spiritual pearl was indeed somewhat difficult. Even dripping one's blood on it required the gold force to be infused into one's blood. In a moment, I will open the altar and release the gold punishment spiritual pearl. Your Majesty, please be at ease. The gold punishment spiritual pearl will not attack those who possess the gold force. After you successfully drip your blood on it, you can slowly fuse with the gold punishment spiritual pearl. The degree of fusion will depend on your body's cultivation, your gold force's cultivation, and your soul's cultivation. As the guard elder spoke, he walked up the steps of the altar. Qin Yu watched from the side. The guard elder walked onto the altar and shot out rays of golden energy from his hands. At the same time, Qin Yu sensed that the guard elder's body was emitting a dense aura of the gold punishment spiritual pearl. Finally, the guard elder slapped his palm onto a certain spot on the altar. Rumble! Immediately, the entire altar began to shake. Because of this, the Inheritance Palace began to shake as well. It was as if an earthquake had occurred. Yo! A golden light suddenly soared into the sky from the center of the altar. It was the gold punishment spiritual pearl. Your Majesty Lu Xing, hurry up and drip your blood on it to recognize it as your master. The guard elder immediately shouted through sound transmission. Qin Yu's feet moved. He once again appeared beside the gold punishment spiritual pearl. Furthermore, the space surrounding Qin Yu was like a swamp, trapping the gold punishment spiritual pearl. A drop of red blood that emitted a golden light fell onto the gold punishment spiritual pearl. The gold punishment spiritual pearl immediately stopped struggling. Like a sponge, it directly absorbed that drop of blood. Qin Yu couldn't help but feel a burst of joy in his heart. Success. This gold punishment spiritual pearl is mine. The gold punishment spiritual pearl directly assimilated into Qin Yu's body. Seeing all of this, the guard elder heaved a long sigh of relief. With a pale complexion, he nodded his head and said, "Your Majesty Lu Xing, how much you are able to assimilate with the gold punishment spiritual pearl will depend on your Majesty's strength. Your Majesty, be at ease and assimilate with the gold punishment spiritual pearl. No one will come and disturb your Majesty." Qin Yu nodded his head. He immediately sat down cross-legged on a praying mat in the inheritance palace. He closed his eyes and began to quietly train. This is truly strange. This gold punishment spiritual pearl is actually only absorbing the gold force and not other types of energy. When Qin Yu attempted to pour the 9 revolutions force into the gold punishment spiritual pearl, he was simply unable to assimilate it into the gold punishment spiritual pearl. After that, Qin Yu could only continue to pour the gold force into the gold punishment spiritual pearl. After the gold punishment spiritual pearl was infused to a certain degree, the gold punishment spiritual pearl began to revolve. At the same time, a golden liquid similar to mercury flowed out from the gold punishment spiritual pearl. Qin Yu's entire body's muscles, bones, etc. became like a dried-up river as they frantically devoured the golden liquid. As the golden liquid assimilated into Qin Yu's entire body's muscles and bones, Qin Yu felt that his entire body's muscles and bones seemed to have undergone a frightening evolution. With a thought, Qin Yu attempted to clench his right fist. Bang! Qin Yu's palm actually produced an explosion sound. Traces of spatial cracks appeared in the surroundings of his right fist. So powerful. My strength has increased by at least 10 times. Qin Yu was overwhelmed with shock. Although he was able to clearly sense that his muscles and bones had advanced by leaps and bounds, Qin Yu was still overwhelmed with shock at this sort of progress. It was no wonder that the Gold Punishment Lord was the leader of the 3 great sovereigns. What pure metal elemental energy! This sort of metal elemental energy is many times stronger than the metal elemental energy of an 18-star emperor. Qin Yu's finger was like a sword as it swallowed and spat out a sharp sword-like golden light. Wherever the finger light streaked past, traces of black cracks would appear in space. This time around, Qin Yu's degree of assimilation was much higher than that of the previous Gold Punishment Lords. That was because Qin Yu's soul's level was truly too high. It was several levels higher than that of ordinary Gold Punishment Lords. Thus, he would naturally be able to assimilate more with the Gold Punishment Spiritual Pearl. However, he was still unable to completely assimilate with the Gold Punishment Spiritual Pearl. If he were to completely assimilate with it, the Gold Punishment Spiritual Pearl would completely turn into a golden liquid. Chapter 487. It's about time. Such strength is sufficient to open the bewitching God Temple's artifacts hall. Qin Yu stood up. He didn't need to reach a high level of fusion. He only needed to be able to open the artifacts hall. After all, regardless of how high the degree of fusion was, he would still have to return the Gold Punishment Spiritual Pearl to the Dark Star Realm when he ascended. Not returning it. Can I not return it? Qin Yu had a smile on his face. There had already been over 70,000 Gold Punishment Lords in the Dark Star Realm. It could be said that the number of experts from the Dark Star Realm that had ascended to the Divine Realm numbered over 200,000. And this was just the 3 sovereigns. There were many who had yet to become sovereigns. That was even more. On top of that, when the Dark Star Realm occupied the entire immortal, devil and demon realm, the number of seniors that ascended during the chaotic era was even more frightening. It was definitely over 1 million. If Qin Yu were to bring the Gold Punishment Spiritual Pearl to the Divine World, once discovered, he would be hunted down by over 1 million people. And many of them had ascended for more than 10 billion years. However, this was not the most frightening matter. The most frightening matter was that mysterious individual who had gifted the Gold Punishment Spiritual Pearl, Black Flame Spiritual Pearl and White Profound Spiritual Pearl to the Dark Star clan. That mysterious person had said that the Dark Star Realm's people were the original inhabitants of this space in the immortal, devil and demon realm. These 3 Grand Mist spiritual treasures were the clan protection treasures of the Dark Star Realm. Would Qin Yu dare to offend such a mysterious person? At the very least, Qin Yu, who was not even a heavenly god, did not dare to offend such a mysterious person. In terms of offensive power, the Gold Punishment Spiritual Pearl is inferior to my Divine Spear Waning Snow. Qin Yu was not greedy for the Gold Punishment Spiritual Pearl. The Gold Punishment Spiritual Pearl was able to strengthen his body's bones and muscles. However, no matter how strong he was, he would still be unable to withstand the might of the high-quality heavenly divine artifact, the Divine Spear Waning Snow. Perhaps this is a third-rate Grand Mist spiritual treasure, Qin Yu thought in his heart. This time around, Qin Yu had guessed wrongly. This Gold Punishment Spiritual Pearl was not a third-rate Grand Mist spiritual treasure at all. This cannot be blamed on Qin Yu. After all, Qin Yu had only fused with a portion of the Gold Punishment Spiritual Pearl and had not completely fused with it. Thus, he did not know how powerful the Gold Punishment Spiritual Pearl would be after completely fusing with it. "Congratulations, Your Majesty," the Guardian Elder's hoarse voice sounded. Qin Yu looked to the Guard Elder who was still sitting cross-legged in the distance. He lightly nodded and said with a smile, "Guard Elder, after becoming the Gold Punishment Lord, there shouldn't be much for me to do, right?" The Guard Elder nodded and said, "Your Majesty, the Gold Punishment Lord, the Black Flame Lord and the White Profound Lord, the 3 great sovereigns, are only there to serve as deterrents. Thus, the Dark Star Realm would not be invaded by ambitious people. Normally, His Majesty would not have anything to do." Qin Yu could not help but smile. Sure enough, that was the case. According to the history of the Dark Star Realm that Qin Yu knew, the Dark Star Realm was originally in a state of chaotic war. It was only after the appearance of the 3 spiritual pearls that the Dark Star Realm began to walk on the path of peace. In peaceful days, the 3 sovereigns had nothing to do. Trifling matters could be completely resolved by the 3 great deputy sect leaders. Of course, the current Gold Punishment sect only had 2 deputy sect leaders. Qin Yu lightly nodded to the Guard Elder. Then, he stepped through the doorway of the Inheritance Palace and left. "Wenfeng, if you all have any matters, you can send me a transmission. I will be leaving for a period of time to peacefully train." Qin Yu only left behind a transmission for Wenfeng. Then, he directly left the Gold Punishment Star. Qin Yu, the Gold Punishment Lord, was truly unique. After officially becoming the Gold Punishment Lord, he did not even use any of his authority and directly left. With Qin Yu leaving, many people who came to the Gold Punishment Star to pay a visit to the Gold Punishment Lord had made a wasted trip. Of course, those people all sighed in their hearts. This new Gold Punishment Lord who did not show off had immediately continued to train right after becoming the Gold Punishment Lord. He was truly a hard-working cultivator. Qin Yu directly rushed toward the entrance of the Bewitching God Temple. Qin Yu did not enter the Bewitching God Temple from the Dark Star Realm. Instead, he entered the Bewitching God Temple from the Demon Realm. That was because Qin Yu did not wish for others to know that he had entered the Bewitching God Temple. Thus, it was better for him to enter the Bewitching God Temple from the Demon Realm without anyone knowing. The outer space was completely empty. Qin Yu was able to clearly see the enormous spatial crack not far away from him. That enormous star formed by golden fragments and black sand appeared before his eyes. Qin Yu knew that he had arrived at the entrance of the Bewitching God Temple. Immediately, he increased his speed and flew toward the entrance of the Demon Realm. When he arrived at the entrance of the Bewitching God Temple, Qin Yu was shocked to discover there are truly a lot of people here. There are actually several tens of Emperor-level experts and several hundreds of level 9 Demon Kings. Qin Yu couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. Ever since the seal of the entrance was broken by Qin Yu, the various major powers no longer dared to continue to seal the entrance. A large amount of Emperor-level experts and some level 9 Demon Kings, level 9 demon kings, level 9 golden immortals, had all come here to try their luck. When Qin Yu arrived at the entrance, people immediately opened up a path for him. Among this group of people, the weakest was a level 9 demon king and the strongest was a level 7 demon emperor. This group of people all respectfully opened up a path for Qin Yu to enter. "All of you stop first," Qin Yu directly said. "Senior." The several tens of level 9 demon kings that were gathered together immediately stopped. They looked to Qin Yu respectfully. Even a level 7 demon emperor had to make way for him. They were able to guess Qin Yu's strength. Qin Yu suspiciously said, "You level 9 demon kings also came here. Could it be that you all think that you can also obtain a divine artifact?" One of the bewitching fox women spoke. "Senior, could it be that you don't know that a dozen years ago, there was a level 9 golden immortal outside the illusion array and very luckily obtained a divine artifact? There's such a thing." Qin Yu couldn't help but be stunned. That level 7 demon emperor with the highest strength spoke. "Senior, that illusion array is constantly changing. And because of the change in energy, the positions of those divine artifacts are also constantly changing. Perhaps there will be a divine artifact that will move to the edge of the illusion array. This way, people with low strength will be able to obtain it. Although the possibility is not high, but this kind of thing has happened many times in history. This is also the reason why the chaotic starfield is so chaotic. It's just that later on, all the major forces sealed the entrance. This caused the number of people trying their luck to decrease by a lot. However, ever since Senior Qin Yu broke the seal with a single spear strike, the number of people trying their luck has increased." That level 7 demon emperor said in detail. That fox woman sighed. "Fortunately, Senior Qin Yu broke the seal. Otherwise, we wouldn't even have the chance to try our luck." The others also voiced their agreement. Qin Yu completely understood in his heart. "Seems like breaking the seal has caused many people to be grateful to me." Qin Yu couldn't help but smile in his heart. "Alright, you guys continue," Qin Yu said indifferently. Soon after, Qin Yu turned into a ray of light and directly rushed into the entrance of the bewitching god temple. Then, his figure turned illusory and disappeared before everyone's eyes. Seeing Qin Yu suddenly disappear, that group of people couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. Teleportation within the bewitching god temple. He rushed into the divine illusion array. That level 7 demon emperor said. He was still barely able to see Qin Yu's movements. The level 7 demon emperor sighed in his heart. Truly a super expert. Qin Yu wasn't teleporting at all. Instead, his speed reached the limit and directly rushed into the divine illusion array. Qin Yu wasn't afraid of getting lost in the illusion array. Firstly, he had the bewitching god painting. Secondly, once he entered the bewitching god temple, the housekeeper, Uncle Fu, would naturally discover him and control the illusion array to automatically open a path for him. Qin Yu's consciousness clearly discovered a large amount of divine artifacts. However, he didn't take a single one. After flying for a long time, a void finally appeared before his eyes. Within the void was a floating palace. The bewitching god temple. Qin Yu directly flew towards the main entrance of the bewitching god temple. The main entrance of the bewitching god temple was open. A person was standing at the doorstep. Uncle Fu. Qin Yu, it's only been several tens of years. Why have you come again? Uncle Fu had a trace of doubt on his face. However, he still had a smile on his face. All right, come in first. Qin Yu acted as if he was entering his own home and casually walked in. Uncle Fu, I've come to the bewitching god temple this time. I reckon that, not long from now, you'll be leaving this place with me. Leaving this place? Uncle Fu repeatedly shook his head. No, I absolutely cannot disobey my master's orders. Master said that before the bewitching god temple is controlled by a new master, I must manage the bewitching god temple. I cannot leave the bewitching god temple. Uncle Fu, you clearly heard the precondition of your master Senior Cheho's orders. Before the bewitching god temple is controlled by a new master. Qin Yu said with a smile. And now, I have the confidence to open the artifacts hall. After Qin Yu finished speaking, he walked with large strides through the corridor of the front hall of the Bewitching God Temple. Uncle Fu was slightly startled. After being stunned for a while, he finally reacted. He hurriedly chased after Qin Yu. At the same time, he anxiously said, Qin Yu, speak clearly. You said that you can open the artifacts hall? When Qin Yu stepped into the courtyard, Uncle Fu also arrived beside Qin Yu. Qin Yu, have you spoken clearly? Uncle Fu was somewhat anxious. Qin Yu turned around and looked at Uncle Fu. He said with a beaming smile, Uncle Fu, I will tell you clearly. I currently have enough strength to open the artifacts hall's door. In other words, I can obtain the core of the Bewitching God Temple. From today onwards, I am the new master of the Bewitching God Temple. As for you, there is no need for you to continue waiting here. You can follow me and roam the world. Uncle Fu calmed down after a while. Impossible. I am very clear about your strength. It has only been a few decades. How could you have reached that stage so quickly? Uncle Fu said with absolute certainty. Qin Yu said with a smile. Uncle Fu, since you don't believe me, I'll show you. Is that all right? After Qin Yu finished speaking, he directly walked towards the artifacts hall's door. Uncle Fu slightly frowned as he stood behind Qin Yu. He watched as Qin Yu easily found the two key mechanisms just like last time. A cyan light shot out from the bottom of the door. At the same time, two protrusions appeared. Uncle Fu, just pull this door up, right? Qin Yu turned around and glanced at Uncle Fu. Right. At this moment, Uncle Fu was also affected by Qin Yu's confidence. He had a feeling that Qin Yu might really succeed. It was just that Uncle Fu found it a bit hard to believe. According to the original plan, when Qin Yu returned from the Divine Realm, he would inherit the Bewitching God Temple. Qin Yu grabbed one protrusion with each of his hands. Qin Yu suddenly exerted strength in his arms. His muscles bulged. The golden liquid that originated from the gold punishment spiritual pearl flowed within his muscles. Qin Yu's strength continued to rise. Quang! The dark red door unceasingly shook, emitting a series of noises. As Qin Yu increased his strength, the dark red door shook even more intensely. The smile on Qin Yu's face also became even more brilliant. Qin Yu was very clear in his heart that at this moment, he had not even used a third of his strength. Ha! Qin Yu suddenly exerted strength with both of his hands. Following a loud shout, the dark red door rushed upwards at an extremely fast speed. With a gotcha sound, the dark red door embedded itself into the mechanism above. The instant the dark red door was pulled up, Qin Yu felt a surge of peculiar aura coming from within. Qin Yu had a feeling that it was the aura emitted by all kinds of treasures gathered together. Even though he did not enter, Qin Yu knew that there were a lot of treasures in the artifacts hall. It was definitely a shocking number. Qin Yu's eyes shined. He stared at the deep passage that appeared naturally after the door was pulled open. Qin Yu, you've actually succeeded. You've really succeeded. Uncle Fu's old face also had a rare trace of pleasant surprise. Uncle Fu was a puppet that possessed intelligence. Puppets could only be created by peak artifact forging experts in the Divine Realm. They were different from the ones in the mortal realm's universe of science and technology. Puppets also possessed human emotions and all kinds of human thoughts. It was just that they did not have the most fundamental soul and were unable to comprehend space. Uncle Fu, you know the layout of the artifacts hall, right? Qin Yu looked at Uncle Fu. Qin Yu did not want to run around like a blind man. Uncle Fu was slightly excited. Of course I know. The Artifacts Hall is the place with the most treasures in the entire Bewitching God Temple. There are precious artifact forging materials, all kinds of precious crystals, and many heavenly divine artifacts. Of course, the most precious treasures are still the Grand Mist spiritual treasures. Qin Yu was unable to refrain himself from swallowing a mouthful of saliva. His heart was also thumping. Uncle Fu sighed. Sigh, when Master was here, the treasures in the artifacts hall were much more numerous than now. This time, in order to create the legendary exalted celestial spiritual treasure, Master spared no expense. Not only did he take away some precious materials, he even melted down 5 Grand Mist spiritual treasures and extracted the Grand Mist spiritual energy within them. Master was worried that there would not be enough Grand Mist spiritual energy to create the exalted celestial spiritual treasures. 5 Grand Mist spiritual treasures. Melted down. Qin Yu felt a bit of heartache. If they were not melted down, wouldn't he possess even more Grand Mist spiritual treasures? Course, one must not be greedy. Qin Yu tried his best to calm his mind. Fortunately, Master thought of a successor. Otherwise, the remaining Grand Mist spiritual treasures might have all been melted down. Come, follow me to the innermost secret room. Master left behind the remaining Grand Mist spiritual treasures because he felt that they would be the most beneficial to his successor. As he said that, Uncle Fu led the way into the deep passage. Qin Yu could not help but follow behind him. Just like that, the two of them walked into the deepest part of the passage. Chapter 488. In the deep and winding passageway of the equipment palace, Qin Yu followed beside Uncle Fu as they went deeper and deeper. Qin Yu observed the walls on both sides of the passageway. He felt very comfortable in his heart. All kinds of relief sculptures were carved on both sides of the passageway of the equipment palace. Moreover, the sculptures were all scenes of nature. That kind of natural feeling could be felt from them. Uncle Fu, looking at these relief sculptures, the person who carved them should be a great expert. Uncle Fu, do you know the person who carved these relief sculptures? Qin Yu asked. In Qin Yu's opinion, given craftsman god Che Ho Yuan's high status, he shouldn't have wasted his time carving them slowly. These relief sculptures were personally carved by my master back then. Uncle Fu's reply surprised Qin Yu. You said that these were all carved by Senior Che Ho? That's right. Uncle Fu had a look of longing on his face. As the #1 expert blacksmith in the divine realm, one needs to know a lot of things. For example, the ability to gather ores and find treasures, the ability to set up formations and restrictions, the ability to control flames, the ability to carve and draw. In order to become an expert blacksmith, one needs to be proficient in a lot of things. Furthermore, an expert blacksmith is usually also an expert in alchemy. It's just that the difficulty of alchemy is one level lower than that of blacksmithing. The most important thing in alchemy is the furnace, the control of flames, and the understanding of the medicinal properties of various materials. Of course, alchemy is still much easier than blacksmithing. Uncle Fu said with a smile. Qin Yu listened attentively. He had long decided to become an expert blacksmith comparable to Che Ho Yuan. In fact, he might even become an expert blacksmith even more powerful than Che Ho Yuan. Blacksmithing requires so many conditions. Qin Yu was secretly surprised. Uncle Fu smiled faintly and said, Of course. To become an expert blacksmith, one needs to know a lot of things. Among them, the most difficult, most important, and most basic thing is the comprehension of formations and restrictions. Qin Yu, you must know that any master blacksmith is also a master of formations. Uncle Fu said with certainty. At the instant a weapon is formed, a powerful formation must be set up within it. Furthermore, the formation must not affect the structure of the weapon in the slightest, allowing the weapon to unleash its greatest power. In short, blacksmithing is very complicated. Qin Yu laughed. Refining is complicated. Doesn't that mean that there are fewer blacksmithing experts in the divine realm? Qin Yu felt a burst of excitement in his heart. The fewer blacksmithing experts there were, the higher his status would be. And at this moment, Qin Yu and Uncle Fu had walked to a relatively spacious and empty hall. The layout of the hall was very elegant, and there was a passageway in each of the 4 corners of the hall. Qin Yu and Xiao Luo walked in from one of the passageways. These 3 corridors represent 3 different levels of treasures. The first corridor has the most rooms, but the items there are the most common. Uncle Fu pointed at a corridor in the opposite corner. Qin Yu nodded slightly and immediately turned his gaze to the other 2 corridors. The second corridor is where the more valuable things are stored. There are also many rooms. Follow me, Uncle Fu said as he stepped into the second corridor. Qin Yu's spiritual sense wanted to investigate, but in this place, his spiritual sense could not penetrate far at all. After stepping into the second corridor, Qin Yu took a glance and saw a couple of rooms. Uncle Fu, what are the things in these rooms? Qin Yu asked. Uncle Fu said with a smile. The rooms in the second corridor mainly store some heavenly divine artifacts, some more valuable blacksmithing materials, of course. There are also some strange and valuable collectibles and the like. Come, let's enter this room first, Uncle Fu said as he pushed open the door to the first room. Qin Yu followed Uncle Fu into the room. Upon entering the room, the scene he saw immediately changed greatly. The room immediately became a huge courtyard that occupied an area of several hundred meters. The courtyard's floor was paved with stone slabs. At the same time, there were square stone counters placed all over the courtyard. Each counter was half a person tall. And on top of the counter there was a weapon placed. At a glance, there were several tens of counters placed in the courtyard, and on top of each counter was a heavenly divine artifact. 68 heavenly divine artifacts, this many. Qin Yu's eyes couldn't help but shine. He carefully examined the heavenly divine artifacts placed on top of each counter. Some of the heavenly divine artifacts were heavy battle blades, some were long and narrow battle blades, some were curved blades, some were long swords, some were short swords, some were soft swords, some were 9-section whips. All kinds of heavenly divine artifacts were placed before one's eyes. This was truly shocking. Qin Yu, these 68 heavenly divine artifacts were all personally crafted by my master when he was bored. Among them, there are 42 low-quality heavenly divine artifacts, 22 mid-quality heavenly divine artifacts and 4 high-quality heavenly divine artifacts. In total, there are 68 heavenly divine artifacts. Qin Yu looked to Uncle Fu in confusion. Uncle Fu, why are there so few high-quality heavenly divine artifacts here? Qin Yu, you are a bit too greedy, said Uncle Fu with a chuckle. Qin Yu, you need to understand that even the cleverest housewife cannot cook without rice. In order to craft a high-quality heavenly divine artifact, you need extremely precious materials. You must know that generally, high-quality heavenly divine artifacts are comparable to Grand Mist spiritual treasures, even though they are only second- or third-rate Grand Mist spiritual treasures. Qin Yu came to a slight understanding. It was precisely because Grand Mist spiritual treasures possessed Grand Mist spiritual energy that they were so powerful. High-quality heavenly divine artifacts did not possess Grand Mist spiritual energy. For a high-quality heavenly divine artifact to possess such might without Grand Mist spiritual energy, it would definitely require extremely precious materials. In order to craft a high-quality heavenly divine artifact, you need extremely precious materials. My master does not possess much power in the divine realm. He is able to gather ordinary materials by himself. As for those precious materials, one would need to possess great power or be extremely lucky to be able to obtain them. My master only obtained some precious materials as a reward when he was crafting artifacts for others. Uncle Fu gasped in admiration. My master has moved unhindered in the divine realm for so many years. Every time he crafted artifacts for others, he would always ask for a very high price. That was why he was able to gather a large amount of precious materials and craft that many heavenly divine artifacts and Grand Mist spiritual treasures. In terms of the number of Grand Mist spiritual treasures, my master possesses more than any power in the divine realm. Uncle Fu appeared to be very proud of himself. Back then, the craftsman god Cheho Yuan possessed a very high status in the divine realm because he did not belong to any power. On top of that, he was the #1 artifact craftsman in the divine realm. Thus, no power dared to offend him. This was also the reason why Che-Ho Yuan was able to possess that many treasures and still exist safely. Unfortunately, for the sake of crafting an exalted celestial spiritual treasure, my master has spared no expense. All of the most precious and peculiar materials, as well as many Grand Mist spiritual treasures, have been melted down by him to obtain Grand Mist spiritual energy. The majority of the wealth in the bewitching God Temple has actually been taken away by my master, Uncle Fu explained to Qin Yu. Understand. Qin Yu completely understood. Merely from Che-Ho Yuan's last words, Qin Yu was able to sense Che-Ho Yuan's desire for the legendary exalted celestial spiritual treasure. For this Che-Ho Yuan to leave behind this many things for him, it was already extremely generous. Uncle Fu, bring me to the other rooms to have a look. Qin Yu turned around and followed Uncle Fu out of the room. There were 3 great corridors in the artifacts palace. Under the guidance of Uncle Fu, Qin Yu saw several rooms in the second corridor. The items in this second corridor were truly incomparably precious. Any one of them would be classified as an inherited treasure in the immortal, devil and demon realm. These precious materials, I wonder when I'll have enough strength to use them to craft a heavenly divine artifact. Qin Yu sighed. Then, he left the last room in the second corridor with Uncle Fu. From Qin Yu's point of view, those precious materials would not melt under the burning of the black divine flames. After walking out of the second corridor, they returned to the central living room. There are only 2 rooms in the third corridor. Uncle Fu pointed to the most important corridor. The walls of this corridor were completely black. The carvings were mainly composed of black and red. Upon entering the corridor, Qin Yu was shocked to see a dragon's head. The scarlet-red eyes of the dragon's head were staring at him. Huff! Qin Yu felt his heart violently jump. Only then did he discover that it was only an enormous carving. The entire corridor was a complete carving. That dragon-shaped carving was naturally emitting a domineering aura. Qin Yu gasped in admiration in his heart. Senior Che-Ho Yuan's carving skills have indeed reached a world-shaking level. The #1 artifact craftsman of the divine realm is truly not that simple. There were only 2 rooms in this black corridor. One was on the left and the other was on the right. Within this room are 3 Grand Mist spiritual treasures. Master left them for you. Uncle Fu pointed to the door on the right. Puzzled, Qin Yu pointed to the door on the left and said, "What's in that door?" "The thing hidden within the door on the left is the most precious. Don't be anxious. After you finish looking at the room on the right, you can look at the room on the left." With a smile on his face, Uncle Fu pushed open the door to the right. Most precious. Qin Yu was puzzled. More precious than the 3 Grand Mist spiritual treasures. What could it be? Qin Yu, quickly come in. Uncle Fu stood at the door to the right and shouted to Qin Yu. Qin Yu acknowledged. For the time being, he stopped thinking about the thing hidden within the door on the left. Following Uncle Fu, he stepped into the door on the right. The door on the right contained the Grand Mist spiritual treasures. Right after entering the room, the scene before him changed again. Splash! Before he could see the scene before him clearly, Qin Yu heard the sound of flowing water. Qin Yu looked toward the source of the sound. It turned out that it was a river that was flowing unceasingly. On the river was a small boat. Qin Yu began to carefully inspect his surroundings. The layout of this room was that of a ravine. There was a river and a boat floating in the river. On the bank of the ravine beside the river was a stone house. Beside the stone house was a tall gray stone pagoda. Uncle Fu, where are the 3 Grand Mist spiritual treasures? Qin Yu asked puzzledly. Uncle Fu shook his head and laughed. Haha, Grand Mist spiritual treasures possess intelligence. If they do not wish for others to discover them, you will not be able to discover them even if you are right in front of them. Look carefully. You should be able to see the 2 Grand Mist spiritual treasures now. They are right before your eyes. Right before my eyes. Qin Yu was puzzled as he carefully inspected the various things before him. The floating boat, the flowing river, the stone house, the stone pagoda, the stones, the flowers, the grass, and so on. That boat is strange. Qin Yu suddenly stared at the boat. The river was flowing unceasingly. The boat was floating on the river and swaying unceasingly. However, no matter how much it swayed, it was still in that region. It simply did not continue to flow with the river. That's right. That boat is one of the 3 Grand Mist spiritual treasures. The name of that boat is the Divine Boat, Flying Yamen. It is a flight-type spiritual treasure. In the Divine Realm, it is an extremely precious auxiliary-type Grand Mist spiritual treasure, said Uncle Fu with a smile on his face. Look again. Are there any other things that might be spiritual treasures? Qin Yu smiled helplessly. I'm not sure. I feel that it's either that stone house or that stone pagoda. Uncle Fu looked at Qin Yu in shock. He nodded and said with a smile. That's right. That stone pagoda is the other Grand Mist spiritual treasure. In the Divine Realm, it is also an extremely precious auxiliary-type Grand Mist spiritual treasure. God Sealing Pagoda. God Sealing Pagoda. Qin Yu looked at the ordinary gray-colored stone pagoda in shock. He did not expect that this stone pagoda would have such an amazing name. As for the 3rd Grand Mist spiritual treasure, it is located in that stone house. That is the only Grand Mist spiritual treasure among the 3 that possesses offensive capabilities. Uncle Fu smiled as he walked toward the stone house. Qin Yu immediately followed behind him. The stone house was not large. After walking into it, Qin Yu saw that there was only a praying mat placed in the center of the house. Behind the praying mat was a long counter. On top of the long counter was a round plate. On top of the round plate was a pair of nearly transparent gloves. Qin Yu looked at the pair of gloves in shock. If he didn't look carefully, he might not be able to see them. This pair of gloves is the one with the most offensive capabilities among the 3 Grand Mist spiritual treasures. Its name is Snowthread Gloves. Uncle Fu said with a smile on his face. These 3 Grand Mist spiritual treasures were left behind by Master for you. With these 3 Grand Mist spiritual treasures, as long as you reach the heavenly deity realm, you will be able to move about unhindered in the divine realm. Qin Yu nodded his head slightly. Qin Yu did not know exactly what use these 3 Grand Mist spiritual treasures possessed. He had to refine them first. Merely refining Grand Mist spiritual treasures was not that easy. Refining these Grand Mist spiritual treasures requires time and energy. For the time being, there's no need to rush. Let's go check out the other room first. Qin Yu nodded his head. Then he said to Uncle Fu, Uncle Fu, let's go check out the other room. Even now, Qin Yu was still thinking about that room. After all, the things in the room on the left were more precious than the things in the room on the right. Chapter 489. Uncle Fu nodded and said with a smile, There is no need to be anxious for the time being. Although the things in the room are important, the 3 Grand Mist spiritual treasures here are the Grand Mist spiritual treasures that you will need to travel the divine realm in the future. Please tell me, Uncle Fu. Qin Yu suddenly realized something. The Divine Boat, Flying Yamen, and the God Sealing Pagoda are 2 auxiliary Grand Mist spiritual treasures. If you have the time, it is best that you refine the Divine Boat, Flying Yamen first. After that, we can refine the God Sealing Pagoda and finally the Snowthread Gloves. Uncle Fu suggested. Qin Yu was slightly puzzled as he asked, Uncle Fu, why are offensive spiritual treasures refined last? In Qin Yu's opinion, his own strength was the most important thing in the divine realm. He should have refined this Snowthread Glove as soon as possible. Uncle Fu shook his head and said with a smile, You already possess the divine spear Waning Snow. Your attack power is already very strong. Furthermore, high-quality heavenly divine artifacts are not as hard to refine as Grand Mist spiritual treasures. Therefore, there's no need to rush to refine the Snowthread Gloves. I agree with that. Heavenly divine artifacts are indeed easier to refine than Grand Mist's spiritual treasures. Qin Yu nodded and said with a smile, as long as one's soul had reached the Soul Jin Dan realm, one could easily refine a heavenly divine artifact. Furthermore, in terms of might, a high-quality heavenly divine artifact was comparable to a second- or third-rate Grand Mist spiritual treasure. Of course, even though they were all high-quality heavenly divine artifacts, there were still differences between them. We'll leave these 3 Grand Mist spiritual treasures here for now. In the future, when you have the time, you can slowly refine them. Only by completely refining these Grand Mist spiritual treasures will they be able to unleash their strongest power, said Uncle Fu with a sigh. Come, follow me to the other room. Qin Yu immediately nodded his head and followed behind Uncle Fu. The two of them left the room that contained the 3 Grand Mist spiritual treasures and entered the room on the other side. He stepped inside. The surrounding scenery changed greatly. Qin Yu carefully observed his surroundings. This was a misty and boundless starry sky. Numerous bright stars were emitting misty starlight in the distance. As for the place where Qin Yu stood, it was the outer space. Not far in front of Qin Yu was a house that was floating in the starry sky. Numerous golden scrolls were floating around this house. There were several thousand of these golden scrolls. The thousands of golden scrolls floated around the room. What's going on here? Qin Yu looked at Uncle Fu in confusion. Uncle Fu smiled and said, Qin Yu, it looks like a starry sky, but the space here is actually not that big. Whether it was the front, back, left, right, up or down, it's only 1 mile away. You won't be able to take another step beyond 1 mile. Uncle Fu, you mean to say? Those stars are merely a kind of illusion technique. Qin Yu immediately understood. Yes, it's an illusion. Uncle Fu smiled. Although Master Strength is strong, he hasn't reached the point where he can refine a space. At most, he can set up a small area. Uncle Fu pointed to the stone house floating in the center. Inside that stone house is the core of the entire Bewitching God Temple, the Refining Flame Wristband, refined from 9 purple origin flame pearls. Refining Flame Wristband. Qin Yu was moved. This Refining Flame Wristband was the core of the Bewitching God Temple. The purple origin flame pearls are third-rate Grand Mist spiritual treasures to begin with. Master refined the 9 purple origin flame pearls into one and created this Refining Flame Wristband. With this Refining Flame Wristband, you will be able to increase your ability to control fire. As for the Refining Flame Wristband itself, it can be considered a second-rate Grand Mist spiritual treasure. However, to an expert artifact refiner, it is comparable to a first-rate Grand Mist spiritual treasure. Uncle Fu smiled as he looked at Qin Yu. Qin Yu was able to guess what Uncle Fu meant. To an expert artifact refiner, the ability to control fire was extremely important. It was not only the control of the fire, it was also the level of the fire. As for this Refining Flame Wristband, it was refined from 9 purple origin flame pearls. Likely, it was a fire attribute Grand Mist spiritual treasure. Its help in artifact refinement was self-evident. Qin Yu, the most important thing for you right now is to immediately refine this Refining Flame Wristband. Uncle Fu looked at Qin Yu. Qin Yu nodded. He looked at the floating house. Refining this Refining Flame Wristband would mean that he would be in control of the Bewitching God Temple. Qin Yu immediately stepped into the air and walked toward the floating house. However, after only taking a couple steps, Qin Yu's gaze turned toward those golden scrolls. What are those scrolls? Qin Yu asked in confusion. Uncle Fu smiled and explained. Those scrolls are scrolls that record martial techniques, secrets, or all kinds of knowledge. They are equivalent to your immortal, devil and demon realms' jade slips. However, the amount of information that a scroll can record is much greater than a jade slip. Qin Yu was a bit surprised. Qin Yu knew very well about the amount of information that a jade slip could record. The amount of information that a jade slip could hold could be said to be astonishingly large. Even the so-called storage disk of his master Lei Wei's cosmos of science and technology could not compare to a 10,000th of a jade slip. These golden scrolls actually had a much greater amount of information than a jade slip. As expected of an item used to record information in the divine realm, Qi knew the reason why I said that the things in this room are more precious than the grand mist spiritual treasures in the room on the right. It is mainly because of these scrolls, said Uncle Fu with a serious expression. Qi Yu couldn't help but be startled. At the beginning, Qi Yu had thought that it was because of the refining flame wristband that Uncle Fu said that the things in this room were more precious than the things in the other room. He did not expect that it was because of these scrolls. The value of these several thousand scrolls cannot be described with numbers. Among them, there are descriptions of medicinal herbs, all kinds of peculiar monstrous beasts, all kinds of dangerous places in the divine realm, and so on. In order to become a master artifact craftsman with a high status, one must learn all of them. Uncle Fu pointed to the floating golden scrolls. Qi Yu's gaze was like a torch as he looked at those golden scrolls. These golden scrolls are the records of all of Master's knowledge. There are many things that cannot be described with words. You can only comprehend them yourself in the future, said Uncle Fu with a smile. However, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Right now, the most important thing for you is to grasp the most fundamental and most important skill of an artifact craftsman: formations. Formations. Which scroll is it? Qi Yu asked. Qi Yu already had the determination to learn and research. Which scroll? Uncle Fu was slightly stunned. Qi Yu smiled and said, "That's right. What's wrong, Uncle Fu? Could it be that you are telling me that a single golden scroll is not enough to record Senior Cheho's comprehension of formations?" Qi Yu said jokingly. Course. Master left behind 900 scrolls of the formation path. You must completely comprehend these 900 scrolls before you can be considered to have taken the first step on the path of a formation expert. Uncle Fu nodded and said. Qi Yu felt a burst of pressure. Uncle Fu, please don't tell me that these 900 scrolls are all full. Qi Yu was very clear about the storage capacity of jade scrolls. After so many years, he had never seen a jade scroll filled with information. As for the golden scrolls, which had a larger storage capacity than jade scrolls, Qi Yu felt terrified just by imagining how much information a single golden scroll could store. Even if the divine sense of an expert in the divine realm was extremely fast, the amount of information a single golden scroll could store was still very terrifying. These 900 scrolls are not all full, Uncle Fu said with a smile. Said Uncle Fu with a smile. Qi Yu immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Uncle Fu continued. Of these 900 scrolls, the first 899 scrolls are completely filled. The last scroll only occupies half of the space. Qi Yu was stunned for a long time. Uncle Fu, how long do you think it will take me to finish reading these 900 scrolls? Qi Yu quietly asked. Even now, Qi Yu still didn't have a very accurate idea about the storage capacity of the golden scrolls in the divine realm. Compared to the storage capacity of the jade scrolls, how much more was it? Uncle Fu smiled and said, I'm not too sure either, but I estimate. If you finish reading these 900 scrolls without sleep or rest, it will probably take you at least a few hundred years. As long as you finish reading them, it will be considered that you have taken the first step to comprehending the first realm of the array path. A few hundred years to finish reading all 900 scrolls. Just comprehending the first step of the first realm. Although Qi Yu was mentally prepared to encounter difficulties in becoming an expert in forging weapons, just comprehending the array path shocked him. You didn't hear me clearly. I said, after reading all 900 scrolls, you will only be qualified to enter the first realm of the array path. At this time you can't even talk about comprehending the first realm. Uncle Fu smiled faintly. Qi Yu felt a wave of pressure. To become the #1 expert in forging weapons in the divine realm, the difficulty was very, very high. Uncle Fu, How long will it take to comprehend the first realm of the array path? Qin Yu asked. Uncle Fu smiled faintly and said, if it's fast, then it's fast. If it's fast, then tens of thousands of years will do. There are also slow ones, comprehending for billions of years and still not reaching the first realm. Tens of thousands of years. Qin Yu nodded inwardly. If Uncle Fu could do it, then he could do better. Uncle Fu continued. Qin Yu, the comprehension of the array path is not the comprehension of an ordinary cultivation technique. It's not that the faster you comprehend it, the better it is. On the contrary, the better one's aptitude is, the longer one lingers in the first realm, the better it is. Master spent over 1,000,000 years to reach the first realm of the array path. Then, he spent over 10 million years to reach the second realm of the array path. Uncle Fu said slowly. But later on, Master abandoned all his previous comprehensions and studied from the beginning. This time he spent over 1,000,000,000 years to comprehend the first realm of the array path. But, to comprehend the second realm of the array path, he only spent 2 hours. Qin Yu's heart shook and his eyes couldn't help but reveal a look of astonishment. This Che Ho Yuan had great perseverance. At the beginning, he only spent 1,000,000 years to reach the first realm of the array path. Then, he spent another 10 million years to reach the second realm. But later on, Che Ho Yuan dared to abandon all his comprehensions and study from the beginning. After researching for over 1,000,000,000 years, he finally perfected the first realm. Then, he only spent 2 hours to reach the second realm. 1,000,000 years. 10 million years. Billion years. 2 hours. What's going on? What's going on? Qin Yu felt that there was a great mystery contained within. Uncle Fu smiled faintly and said, the array path is a test of talent and patience. Master had heaven-gifted talent, great perseverance, and great wisdom. In the end, he was able to comprehend the third realm of the array path. This also allowed Master to become the #1 expert in the divine realm. If it wasn't for the second time, Master wouldn't have been able to comprehend the second realm of the array path. Uncle Fu said indifferently, what's going on? Didn't Senior Che Ho comprehend the first realm at the beginning? Why did he have to comprehend it again? Qin Yu felt that his mind was in a mess. Uncle Fu shook his head and said, because everyone comprehends a different first realm. The different first realms determine a person's future in the array path. Qin Yu, what I'm telling you now is also what Master told me to tell his successor before he left. For the first realm of the array path, you must reach the most perfect realm. That's right, it's the most perfect realm. You must try your best to go as deep and profound as possible. Qin Yu felt a bit bitter in his heart. Without a doubt, that Che Ho Yuan's talent was extremely high. However, the second time he still used 1,000,000,000 years to comprehend the first realm. How long would he have to spend? Would he even have that much time? Uncle Fu, I'll refine the refining flame wristband first. As for the comprehension of the array path, it's better for me to wait until I reach the divine realm. The time I have in the immortal devil and demon realm is already insufficient. As Qin Yu said that, he stepped into the house. In close to 108 years, Qin Yu would have to undergo the divine tribulation and then ascend. In these 108 years, Qin Yu would have to do a lot of things. He simply did not have the time to comprehend the array path. 100 years. He wouldn't even be able to finish reading the 900 scrolls of the array path. In this floating house, a warm red light was being emitted. The source of the red light was the wristband that was floating in the middle of the house. It was made up of scarlet red sparkling and translucent beads. Qin Yu's gaze was fixed on the wristband. Refining flame wristband. Qin Yu was incomparably certain. At this moment, Uncle Fu walked in and said, Qin Yu, refining that refining flame wristband is a bit difficult. It mainly depends on the true flame within your body as well as the realm of your soul. First, drip a drop of blood onto it. According to how Master set it up when he refined this wristband, it should be very easy to bind it with your blood and absorb it into your body. Qin Yu nodded. He extended his finger. A drop of blood floated out from his fingertip and landed on the refining flame wristband. Immediately, the refining flame wristband started to emit chicha sounds. At the same time, a burst of white mist started to emit from it. It's done. Qin Yu could clearly feel the connection between his soul and the wristband. With a thought, the refining flame wristband directly assimilated into Qin Yu's body. As for Qin Yu himself, almost at the same time, he directly sat down in a cross-legged position. At this moment, he had already started to refine the refining flame wristband. Qin Yu wasn't far away from ascending. Qin Yu didn't want to waste too much time on refining the wristband. He wanted to spend some time with his family. You're really hard-working. Uncle Fu saw that Qin Yu had started to refine the wristband. He couldn't help but nod his head and smile. With your soul realm and the fact that Master lowered the requirements when he refined the refining flame wristband, I estimate that you'll be able to refine it in a few thousand years. A few thousand years. Qin Yu was going to undergo his divine tribulation in 108 years. Unfortunately, at that moment, Qin Yu was wholeheartedly refining the refining flame wristband. Thus, he didn't know what Uncle Fu was talking about. Otherwise, he would definitely be sullen to death. Master is truly amazing. If it were an innate grand mist spiritual treasure, it would normally take several 100,000 years to refine it. For some powerful grand mist spiritual treasures, the amount of time and energy required to refine them is even more astonishing. If the grand mist spiritual treasure were to resist, I reckon that no matter how long it takes, it would still be impossible to refine it. Fortunately, the refining flame wristband was personally refined by Master. Thus, Qin Yu was able to refine it in a few thousand years. Uncle Fu gasped in admiration. Evidently to Uncle Fu, refining a grand mist spiritual treasure in a few thousand years was simply too fast. After that, Uncle Fu sat to the side. With a flip of his hand, he took out a pot of tea and began to slowly drink it. As for Qin Yu, he sat cross-legged at the side and wholeheartedly refined the refining flame wristband. Time passed, year after year. Asterisk 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 within Qin Yu's Donqian space. The refining flame wristband was floating within Qin Yu's Donqian space. Black flames were unceasingly fusing into the refining flame wristband. At the same time, Qin Yu's soul power was unceasingly fusing into the refining flame wristband. What's going on? Why is the refinement of this refining flame wristband so slow? Qin Yu had already dripped his blood on the refining flame wristband. He knew that he was still very far from being able to completely refine the refining flame wristband. According to Uncle Fu, the refinement speed of the refining flame wristband was related to the level of one's soul and the true flames within one's body. Furthermore, after dripping his blood on the refining flame wristband, Qin Yu also knew that if he wanted to increase the refinement speed of the refining flame wristband, the only way was to increase the level of his soul or increase the amount of true flames within his body. How long will it take for this to end? Qin Yu grew anxious. If I place this refining flame wristband into this stellar space, and place it directly at the source of the true flames within my body, I reckon it will be faster. With a thought, the refining flame wristband entered the black hole, and followed the black hole passageway to the stellar space. The stellar space was now extremely vast. Qin Yu's consciousness scanned his surroundings. Outside the stellar space, the boundless flower paste space that resembled a cosmic space was the same as before. The thick flower paste continued to flow as streams of aura flowed into the stellar space. I'm still quite a distance away from the late-stage origin realm. Qin Yu paid attention to that dark black sphere. That sphere was still flickering with traces of golden light. According to Qin Yu's estimation, if one were to completely reach the late-stage origin stage, there shouldn't be any trace of golden light emitting from that sphere. The stellar space was constantly absorbing the flower paste aura in the periphery. I still need some time to absorb it. Qin Yu sighed before paying attention to the refining flame wristband. The refining flame wristband was flying towards the source of the black divine fire. But at that moment, "What's going on?" Qin Yu watched in astonishment. He saw a wisp of flower paste aura float towards the refining flame wristband. The refining flame wristband immediately began to tremble. Then, with great difficulty, it began to devour the wisp of flower paste aura. There was very little of this wisp of flower paste aura. The dark golden sphere at the core of his stellar space was able to instantly devour a massive amount of flower paste aura. But the refining flame wristband had spent nearly a month devouring less than a tenth of the flower paste aura. But after devouring just a tenth, Qin Yu felt that the refinement process of the refining flame wristband had increased by a tenth. Heavens! Qin Yu was stunned. At the same time, he was overjoyed. In a month, the refinement process had increased by a tenth. In addition to the 20% he had absorbed at the beginning, Qin Yu believed that in another 7 months, he would be able to completely refine the refining flame wristband. But in the following days, Qin Yu discovered that the refining flame wristband was absorbing the flower paste aura at a slower and slower rate. Back then, it had only been able to devour a tenth of the flower paste aura in a month. And then, after spending 2 months, it had only been able to devour a second tenth. Full 10 years. 10 years later, the refining flame wristband had finally been completely refined. But at this time, there was still a small portion of the flower paste aura that had yet to be devoured. The refining flame wristband was no longer able to devour any more flower paste aura. It was as though the refining flame wristband was already saturated. As for the remaining bit of flower paste aura, it, along with the trillions of other flower paste auras, began to converge towards the core of the stellar space, the origin. Every moment, the origin was devouring the flower paste aura at a terrifying speed. Chapter 490. Within the floating house with several thousand scrolls floating around it, Uncle Fu was sitting to one side. He was holding a golden scroll in his hand and his eyes were slightly closed. The scroll in his hand was unceasingly flickering with golden light. Qin Yu, who was sitting cross-legged on the praying mat, suddenly opened his eyes. Uncle Fu seemed to have sensed something and looked toward Qin Yu. "Qin Yu, why aren't you continuing to refine the refining flame wristband?" Uncle Fu asked in confusion. "Qin Yu, it's only been a dozen or so years. It's still early. Refining grand mist spiritual treasures is extremely difficult. It's already pretty good for you to be able to successfully refine it within several thousand years." Qin Yu smiled as he looked at Uncle Fu. "Uncle Fu, what do you mean by several thousand years? Even I feel confused. I've already successfully refined the refining flame wristband." Uncle Fu was startled. "You're saying that you've successfully refined it?" Uncle Fu had a stunned expression. "That's right," Qin Yu said with a smile. "What's wrong? Could it be that you don't believe me?" With a thought from Qin Yu, the illusion outside started to change. Originally, it was only the scenery of outer space. However, at this moment it changed. A small bridge, flowing water, and a floating house on a grassland. As for the several thousand scrolls, they were gathered together and neatly piled up in a corner of the house. Seeing this scene, Uncle Fu said in astonishment, "Qin Yu, no, master." Uncle Fu bowed respectfully. "From today onwards, you are the master of the bewitching god temple. You are also my master." "Uncle Fu, there's no need for that. You can just address me as Qin Yu," Qin Yu said in a carefree manner. Uncle Fu firmly shook his head and said, "When the old master left, he gave me an order. Once the successor controls the bewitching god temple, he will be my master. I cannot go against the old master's orders." Qin Yu understood in his heart. This Uncle Fu was a puppet refined by Che-Ho Yuan. Thus, Uncle Fu naturally would not dare to go against Che-Ho Yuan's orders. "Master, please call me Fu." "If Master calls me Uncle Fu, I wouldn't dare," Uncle Fu said respectfully. Although Uncle Fu was very happy when Qin Yu called him Uncle Fu didn't dare. However, Che Ho Yuan had also said that puppets were merely servants. A smile appeared on Qin Yu's face. Uncle Fu, I'm your master now, right? Yes, Uncle Fu said respectfully. Do I need you to tell me what to call you? Qin Yu asked back with a smile. I can call you whatever I want. From today onwards, you are still the housekeeper of the bewitching God Temple and I will still call you Uncle Fu. Qin Yu announced. Master. Uncle Fu looked at Qin Yu, feeling touched. He was a puppet that had been refined. Although he had emotions, intelligence, and could even cry, laugh, and curse, he was still a puppet. He could look exactly like a human, but in reality he could not cultivate. Even the energy in his body was provided by the God's spirit crystal. However, he had the emotions of a human. Naturally, he had the desire to be acknowledged by others. Qin Yu addressing him as Uncle Fu had caused him to feel a burst of indescribable emotions. Uncle Fu, you said earlier that it would take several thousand years to refine the refining flame wristband. What's going on? Qin Yu's heart was filled with confusion. Didn't I successfully refine it in 10 or so years? Uncle Fu's attitude was clearly different now. He said respectfully, Master, the refining flame wristband left behind by Old Master was personally refined by Old Master. Moreover, Old Master had considered his future successor. Therefore, refining it was much easier. With Master's current soul realm and true fire level, you should need several thousand years to succeed. As for Master's success in 10 or so years, I can't figure out the reason. Qin Yu naturally started to recall the scenes of the refinement process. After dripping his blood on it, he immediately refined about 10% of it. Later, relying on his soul power and the black divine fire, he spent several years refining another 10%. Finally, he placed the refining flame wristband into his astral space. After absorbing the flower paste aura, the refining speed increased rapidly. The first month was the fastest, and he refined another 10%. Later on, the refining speed became slower and slower. Towards the end, it became more and more terrifying. Took him 10 years. In total, he spent more than 10 years to succeed. Master, I originally estimated that your refining speed would be 10% at the beginning. Then, you would need around 5 years to refine another 10%. Then, you would need another 10 years or so to refine another 10%. After that, you would need around 2,000 to 3,000 years to refine the last 10%. Uncle Fu said respectfully. Qin Yu listened to Uncle Fu's explanation of the pattern. The speed at which the refining flame wristband absorbed the flower paste aura was like that. It became slower and slower. At the same time, the refining speed also became slower and slower. The final 10% took nearly 5 years. Master's refining speed is so fast that I have never heard of it in all my years following Old Master. Unless an Empyrean level expert helps you. Uncle Fu said softly. Qin Yu nodded slightly. His refining speed was fast not because of the help of an Empyrean, but because of the flower paste aura absorbed in the astral space. Ever since the stellar transformations reached the black hole realm and opened up another space, the stellar transformations cultivation technique's evolution has entered another evolutionary path. Qin Yu knew that the astral space was an extremely vast, flower paste space. What was this flower paste space? Why did the core of the astral space, origin, only transform and evolve by absorbing the flower paste aura? Now that the stellar transformations has reached the mid-stage origin realm, it's not far from the late-stage origin realm. However, what is the realm after the 9th realm, the origin realm? Qin Yu knew very well that if the stellar transformations cultivation technique continued to develop and took every step correctly, it should be very powerful. However, mistakes could also happen when creating a cultivation technique. Once a mistake was made, the stellar transformations might take a different path. His future achievements might not be bad, but it would not be as powerful as a true great Tao. There's no point in thinking too much about this sort of thing. Who knows, I might be able to understand it in a flash of inspiration. Qin Yu stopped pondering about the stellar transformations. Uncle Fu, refining the other 3 grand mist spiritual treasures will take a lot of time, right? Qin Yu looked to Uncle Fu. Uncle Fu nodded and said, "That's right. Master, the refining speed of the other 3 grand mist spiritual treasures should be slower than the refining speed of the refining flame wristband. According to my estimations, Master will need to spend. I also don't know how long Master will need." At this moment, Uncle Fu did not dare to make any assertions about the Master before him. He had accumulated all these years of experience by following Cheho Yuan. However, it was no longer applicable to Qin Yu. Qin Yu lightly smiled. "Well then, let's leave this place first." "Yes, Master," Uncle Fu said respectfully. The bewitching God temple was floating in outer space. Qin Yu and Uncle Fu were outside the bewitching God temple. "Return." Qin Yu extended his right hand. The refining flame wristband was currently on his arm. The refining flame wristband emitted a faint red light. The bewitching God temple immediately shrunk rapidly. After that, it turned into a ray of light and entered the refining flame wristband. "Uncle Fu, let's go." As Qin Yu spoke, he was about to charge into the fog-like divine restriction before him. "Master, you are now the master of the bewitching God temple. Ordinary trifling matters can be handled by me," said Uncle Fu respectfully. Then, he pointed to the space not far to the east where the 2 of them were. Immediately, a ring emitting 3-colored light appeared there. This is. Even though Qin Yu had become the master of the bewitching God temple, he did not know much about Uncle Fu. "Master, this is a teleportation array. I have been staying in the bewitching God temple all these years and have nothing to do. Thus I set up a teleportation array here. I also set up another one outside the golden fragmentary stream. I plan to not have to go through so much trouble to pass through this divine illusion restriction when leaving in the future," said Uncle Fu with a smile. Qin Yu lightly nodded his head. He was disinclined to charge through the divine restriction and directly entered the teleportation array with Uncle Fu. Following a burst of light, Qin Yu and Uncle Fu disappeared from the teleportation array. Qin Yu and Uncle Fu were traveling together. Uncle Fu's flying speed was extremely fast. However, Uncle Fu was unable to use teleportation, greater teleportation and other remarkable abilities. That was because he simply did not possess a soul. Thus, Qin Yu could only bring Uncle Fu with him and use greater teleportation. On their journey, Qin Yu chatted with Uncle Fu and learned many of Uncle Fu's secrets. Uncle Fu was very powerful. Although he was unable to teleport or use greater teleportation, he was able to cross several 100,000 miles in a blink of an eye. His speed was over 100 times faster than Qin Yu's. That was because the toughness of Uncle Fu's body had already reached the level of a high-quality heavenly divine artifact. Even high-level heavenly deities' bodies were inferior to his. Furthermore, he had set up many formation arrays and restrictions within his body to increase his speed. Thus one could imagine how fast his speed was. At the same time, Uncle Fu was a formation array expert. After following Cheho Yuan for so many years, Uncle Fu had been studying the array path the entire time. The 900 scrolls of the array path. If Uncle Fu were to close his eyes, he would likely be able to clearly remember every single word. It was so much so that Uncle Fu had written his own array path comprehension, based on his comprehension of the 900 scrolls of the array path. He had written over 10,000 scrolls. Merely, those golden scrolls were placed in Uncle Fu's own storage divine artifact. Furthermore, due to the fact that Uncle Fu did not possess a soul, he was unable to comprehend the different levels of the array path. This had led to Uncle Fu struggling on the path to the first level of the array path. When Cheho Yuan was revising the array path, he had spent 1 billion years researching the first level. What about Uncle Fu? After following Che-Ho Yuan for so many years, Uncle Fu had been researching the first level the entire time. As for the amount of time that had passed, it was unknown how many hundreds of millions of years had passed. The current Qin Yu only knew that Uncle Fu was a formation array expert. However, Qin Yu still did not know about Uncle Fu's true strength in the field of formation arrays. Without truly researching the 900 scrolls of the array path, Qin Yu was unable to truly understand Uncle Fu's strength in the field of formation arrays. You're tuning in to the Whispers of Romance YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.